Right-hand lane.
Good morning. It's 9 o'clock and time for the May 17th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County to begin. We're going to start with an invocation by Commissioner Wesley Davis, followed by the pledge led by Commissioner Tim Zork. Please rise.
Please bow your head. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to come before you today to conduct the public's business. May we use your guidance, your knowledge, and your wisdom in the decisions that we make here today that will affect our community for generations to come. In your heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next is additions and deletions to the agenda. Gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman, one of my items, 14D1, dealing with the Sebastian Scrub, Mrs. Jane Schnee is here, and I'd like to see if we could move my matter up to after, say, consent agenda, so that Mrs. Schnee doesn't have to wait too long to...
You want to just put it under after the last proclamation?
That would be fine. That'd be fine as well.
We'll make that item F on that.
Okay, thank you.
And I also have an item on my agenda which is related to the presentation by Ken Grudens. And if I may, I'd like to move my item up to the 14EB.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any others? So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. We now move to proclamations and presentations. And the first is the presentation of a proclamation and retirement award honoring William Michael on his retirement from Indian River County Board of County Commissioners, Department of Emergency Services, Fire Rescue, with 30 years of service. Good morning, Mr. Michael.
Good morning.
And good morning, Chief. How are you?
Good morning, Commissioner.
It's my great honor to be able to read the proclamation. And after I finish reading the proclamations, I hope you'll have something to say, and hope that the Chief will follow up with something to say. This is a proclamation honoring William Michael on his retirement from Indian River County Board of County Commissioners, Department of Emergency Services, Fire Rescue. Whereas William Michael retired from Indian River County Fire Rescue effective May 31st, 2016. And whereas William Michael began his career on June 13th, 1986 as a firefighter EMT, and by the early 90s had achieved driver engineer status with certifications in smoke diving, open water diving, fire instructor, fire safety inspector, fire service leadership, as well as an associate degree in fire science. He was promoted to lieutenant in 1996 and then earned his paramedic license in 2001, became a special ops field training officer in 2002, followed by a promotion to captain, and culminating in his ascent to battalion chief in 2013, in which capacity he served until his retirement. And whereas William Michael has served this county and the public with distinction and selflessness. During his 30 years of service, he received numerous letters of commendation and gratitude from his commanding officers, his fire service brothers, and the general public. His work has been greatly appreciated by his employer, his co-workers, and the citizens alike. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the Board applauds William Michael's efforts on behalf of the county, and the Board wishes to express their deepest gratitude for the dedicated service he has given Indian River County for the last 30 years. And be it further proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners and staff extend their sincerest wishes for success in his future endeavors. Adopted this 17th day of May 2016. Thank you, Mr. Michael. And that's not it. We've got one more. And this is to certify that William Michael is hereby presented this retirement award for outstanding performance and faithful service to Indian River County Board of County Commissioners for 30 years of service on this 31st of day, May 2016. But your wife is here in the audience. Ed, would you like to bring her up to the podium too?
There goes your
Cheryl
video,
comes
Bill.
forward, I'd like
This is one of the first times I've seen Cheryl be shy.
yeah. I'd like to make a statement and a couple of comments about Bill, if I may. The first is this unusual fact about Bill is that his first day of employment was Friday the 13th, and his last working day was Friday the 13th. So not many people can say that. The other thing about Bill's I'd like to say is that it wouldn't fit on his plaque, but if you visited the Firefighters Fair in the last 30 years, you probably saw Bill at the front gate. That's where you served for most of 30 years in the Firefighters Fair. He also worked at Indian River State College as an instructor with the Fire Recruit Academy for 16 years. And some of the best and brightest employees that came through there, Bill encouraged them to take employment with Indian River County, and so we appreciate him for that. And for the last decade, you know that the fire employees on their days off, the fire rescue employees, on the days before preceding Thanksgiving, they cook about 400 and some turkeys for the disadvantaged in this community. And Bill's been involved with that since day one. So those are all things that you don't see on a plaque, but a guy like Bill deserves this. And so he's a man of few words, but his words have a lot to say. He's known for his integrity, and his coworkers often speak how Bill helped prepare them for their career. With Bill, over the last 2.5 years, as many people have retired out, one of the greatest unspoken compliments that a supervisor can get is the number of employees on your shift that get promotions. Bill takes the credit for having the most number of promotions coming off his shift. So congratulations to Bill.
Thank you, Chairman Solari and Commissioners. It's been my honor to serve the people of Indian River County, who has graciously supported Indian River County Fire Rescue. As a firefighter, I spent more than a third of my life away from my house and family. I want to thank my wife, Cheryl. Cheryl has kept our family together, our house a home, while I was away at work. You're an amazing woman, mother, Mimi, wife, my soulmate. Thank you for your love and support. I love you. Thank you, Chief King, for those kind words. Chief, also thank you for believing in me and giving me your support. Your advice and guidance is greatly appreciated. I want to thank all the agencies that I've worked closely with over the years. The dispatchers, Sheriff's Department, local police departments, Indian River Shores, Public Safety, and all the emergency room personnel. To my coworkers, I would not have been successful in my career if it had not been for the support of all the men and women of Indian River County Fire Rescue. They are all dedicated, professional, and talented individuals. Thank those that are here today and those that could not be here. My success is a result of their excellent work. It's been an honor and a pleasure working with you. I'd like to leave you with this. You will work with many different talented people during your career. Everyone has something good to offer you. It is your job to find that good quality and make it a part of you. Thank you. May God bless you and keep you safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the service. When you finish shaking hands now.
right, Joe.
No.
Now we can do these hanging around all the time.
The next few weeks will be an adjustment.
Congratulations.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
I just want to add, Bill, it was a distinct privilege and honor to work alongside of you to respond to scenes. And I have to tell you that whether you were wearing a firefighter's fair shirt or you were responding to a critical scene, you were a magnificent individual. You need to be proud of those 30 years. And those 30 years, that's probably why your speech was so profound. You had a long time to develop it. But with that, I have to say that I just had to pause for a moment. This year, we've probably, through retirement and attrition, we've probably lost more institutional knowledge. And that was my thoughts as I'm looking at you in your Class A uniform. And I wish you had a little longer to spend in your Class B uniform and serve the people of Indian River County as you've done so with such great dedication and professionalism. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
Sir.
You know, one thing that just stood out whenever I was listening to your many accolades is whenever you, I believe it was 2001, you got your paramedic certification. And being the only commissioner here at the time that made the decision to go ahead and consolidate the two departments, we knew that could not work without cooperation, but more importantly, without leadership on both sides. And I think the fact that you did it, you got that certification 4 years at least, or three years at least, in advance of the actual event happening. The transition, I think we can all look back and say that the department's better today because of that transition, and it could not have happened without the leadership of people like yourself that, quite frankly, those people that are getting hired today, they don't remember how contentious that was, and they don't remember the leadership and the give and take on both sides to make it happen. But you were part of that, and I'm sorry I didn't mention it when I have seen others come before here for their retirements. But that's something, in my opinion, that goes to your leadership qualities that John mentioned, and not just the institutional knowledge, but clearly the leadership that we're losing is something we're really going to have to start relying on the newcomers. But we're fortunate to have had you lead them, and they'll see what a true leader's like.
Thank you, Commissioner. We do have a lot of very talented men and women, and they will step up, and they won't let you down, and they won't let me down. I believe in that. They'll train these young firefighters to be excellent firefighters and keep them safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope they all become Bills.
We'll now have the presentation of a proclamation designating the week of May 15th through 21st, 2016 as Emergency Medical Services Week. This will be presented by Commissioner Flesher and received by Assistant Chief Brian Burkeen. Commissioner Flesher.
Thank you for the honor, Mr. Chairman, and I have to say it's with great honor that we bestow this proclamation and dedicating Emergency Medical Services Week. You know, oftentimes when we travel on the road, we see a vehicle out there and it's kind of square, and there's not as much appreciation for that vehicle until you're dialing 911, and the individuals are there to respond, to stabilize, and convey to the proper level of medical authority so that your life can be sustained and you can become whole again. So I just want to say thank you, and I only hope that all our citizens appreciate when they see an ambulance, that they respect it and allow it to continue on to where it needs to go by pulling over. Mr. Chairman, I'll read the proclamation as follows, designating the week of May 15th through May 21st, 2016 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas President Gerald Ford signed the first National EMS Week proclamation in 1974 to draw the attention to the sacrifice, dedication, and commitment of emergency medical personnel by officially recognizing their roles in our communities as a vital public service. And whereas the members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. Whereas the emergency medical services system of Indian River County consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, emergency nurses, emergency physicians, and others dedicated to the field. And whereas the members of the emergency medical services team, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continued education to enhance their life-saving skills. Whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value of the accomplishments of the Indian River County emergency medical service providers and remind all citizens that the tremendous contributions to our quality of life here in Indian River County and throughout the country. Now therefore be proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County that we do hereby designate May 15th through May 21st as Emergency Medical Services Week. This year's theme, Called to Care, captures the spirit of the devotion of our providers, and we encourage the community to recognize our teams by observing this week and sharing their own strength with our local EMS providers and by taking steps to improve individual personal safety and preparedness. Duly adopted this 17th day of May 2016, signed by all 5 county commissioners. And we do have a great team before us. Chief Bakeen.
Good morning. Brian Burkeen, Assistant Chief, Fire Rescue. And nobody ever said providing emergency medical services is an easy job. If it was, we'd all be doing it. And but we're going to sit here and talk about that just a little bit. On behalf of the fine men and women of Indian River County Fire Rescue, I stand before you and accept on their behalf. Again, I tell you every year, it's people out there that are on the streets who make my job easy. And if I really had to work hard, I wouldn't know what I'd have to do. But here we are again. I've stood before this body on many occasions to receive this award, and every year I'm just astonished at the amazing strides that we make to reduce mortality and morbidity in our community. Emergency medical services has come a long way, and I'm proud to tell you that next year, when we do this again, that we'll make even more strides. And sorry to say that'll probably be the last time I receive it on behalf, because I'll be retiring as well with Bill Michael. We're going fishing. So as the proclamation states that the EMS team consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, emergency nurses, emergency physicians, and many others. Our first responders, all the way from our local law enforcement, Sheriff Lohr here today, his guys have done a phenomenal job, providing first responder activities for us, making our jobs that much easier and reducing that morbidity and mortality. I have with us today a couple of representatives. We've invited representatives from all of our local hospitals. Some could not make it. But before you hear today, from Longwood Regional, I got CEO Greg Lowe, and from Trauma Services, Kimberly Fitzgerald and Katie Maximow. And I'd like for them to say a few things when I'm done here. But again, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to recognize out of our busy schedules that our guys are out there and they're providing phenomenal work. From the layperson to the first responder, all the way to discharging of those people who return to a normal life and normal function after their emergency care. So I thank you guys again. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Anything you'd like to say?
My name is Greg Lowe. I'm the CEO with Longwood Regional Medical Center and Heart Institute. We're the local trauma center in this district, and I appreciate you recognizing the EMS providers in this region. We have an incredible relationship with Indian River EMS and look forward to continuing that relationship and providing trauma services in this district.
Good morning. My name is Kim Fitzgerald Wright. I'm the director of the trauma program with Mr. Lowe. And I also just wanted to echo that we really appreciate the relationship that we've enjoyed with Indian River Fire and EMS for the past several years. And we really appreciate you taking the week for them, because they do deserve the recognition 365 days a year. But 1 week is a wonderful gesture, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Again, I'll just echo, how thankful we are for EMS services, but I am the trauma injury prevention and education coordinator for the hospital, and I couldn't do my job every day trying to prevent traumas from happening in the county if I didn't have Indian River EMS services backing me up, whether they do mock DUI crashes, helmet fittings, car seat safety checks, everything they do, not only on scene but off scene, should be recognized. Thank you.
And once again, we want to thank you guys for taking the time out of all our busy schedules. You know, if it wasn't for the direction of you five, Joe Baird, John King, and every person we're serving out there, 25,000 times a year, we thank you guys for taking the time. Thank you.
Not like you count. And yours? No. Good morning.
Thanks for coming today, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming down. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Yeah.
You want to center him up?
You center?
Scott.
I'll grab Brian's.
Brian. Scott.
One more. We will now have the presentation of a proclamation recognizing May 20th, 2016 as Indian River County's Bike to Work Day. I'm going to present this, and we have a number of people from the Vero Cycling Club, including Sharon LaPointe, the club president. So if you all want to come on up to the podium.
And Jean and Jake.
Bring up Tad, too.
Tad's going to be our photographer today. He doesn't like to be in the limelight.
I'm very happy to read this proclamation recognizing May 20th, 2016 as Indian River County's Bike to Work Day. Whereas, since the mid-1800s, bicycles have been important for play, sport, and transportation for Americans across all regions and demographic groups. And whereas, most Indian River County citizens and visitors bicycle for practical mobility, physical fitness, and family recreation throughout the year. And whereas, educating both cyclists and motorists about correct, safe operation of bicycles and cars is crucial for everybody's safety and comfort. And whereas, the Indian River County Metropolitan Planning Organization, Bicycle Advisory Committee, cycling organizations, and independent cyclists throughout Indian River County and the state of Florida are promoting greater public awareness of bicycle operation and safety education in an effort to reduce accidents, injuries, and fatalities. And whereas, May is National Bike Month, and May 20th, 2016 is National Bike to Work Day. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that May 20th, 2016 be designated as Bike to Work Day in Indian River County, adopted the 17th day of May 2016, and signed by all 5 members of the Board of County Commissioners. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. National Bike Month is much more than 31 days of fun in May. Since 1956, 60 years ago, May's been recognized as National Bike Month. It's a movement to build bike-friendly community, and we truly thank you for your efforts in helping us achieve this. Traditionally, the third Friday in May is designated as Ride Your Bike to Work Day. Vero Cycling is challenging our wonderful commissioners to, and our county workers to ride to work with us. We are going to meet at the county courthouse at 8:30 in the morning. We can provide you with a bike and a helmet and an escort to work. If you are interested, please let Vero Cycling know. if you would like to ride further and would like to ride from your home, we can certainly meet you near your home and provide an escort also. Now, we do want to tell you that we are thrilled that Chairman Solari has already accepted our challenge, and his lovely wife, and will be riding to work on Friday. So we're looking forward to hearing from others.
I'm really hoping that Commissioner Davis is going to join me on this. I mean, he seems like such a natural.
We have training wheels.
And the fact that we don't have to
We
wear
can do this.
spandex, I mean, that alone ought to.
I'm thinking about the two-seater. You said you would ride with me. So
We have those too. We have tandems and we have three-wheelers.
Have any motorized bikes?
No. But
do I get a pass
lastly,
if I've ever done Dancing with the Stars? That kind of get me like a...
now, if you're interested in these lovely T-shirts, we can also provide those too. Lastly, Vera Cycling wishes to thank each and every one of you for your support making Vero a safer place for cyclists and pedestrians.
Thank you, Ms. Bobby.
And we are encouraging you to participate Friday in the Ride to Work. And Phil Mattson is participating, and he's going to put his bike on the bus, which I think is a really cool idea. And I'm going to do that with him because I haven't experienced that before. And then he'll ride from the health department over and join at the courthouse. I also would like to mention that tomorrow we are doing our first Ride of Silence. And that is a ride that's an international ride held on the third Wednesday of May at 7 o'clock at night to honor people who have been killed or injured on bikes. And we are going to be recognizing Cole Coppola with a stop on the bridge. We'll stop at the cemetery for a moment of silence and recognize any cyclists who have been killed, including Miss Waters. And then we will go to the McDonald's parking lot for a moment of silence for Kevin Adorno. And return back before dark. It's an 8-mile ride, and it is going to be at a very slow pace. It's supposed to be very somber. We just found out, Tad heard from the Adorno family, that they're going to be participating in the same ride in Connecticut. So we welcome you and anyone in the community who would like to join us. It's open to anyone. It's tomorrow night. We'll leave from Veterans Island Memorial Sanctuary at Riverside Park. We'll meet at 6:30. Reverend Cliff Melvin will say a few words. But unfortunately, we have had fatalities in this county, and so we do want to be a part of this movement. So you are welcome again to join us in that.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Davis.
and this is, I'm not, if it happens, it's not my fault, but is this a rain or shine event?
At this moment, yes,
Okay.
I'm praying.
All right.
I'm praying
Okay.
really hard.
Yeah, me too,
That
but
we
I didn't
don't
wanna-
have
I
any
just wanna-
rain. We would probably schedule a rain date, but
Okay.
that's challenging. We do have Vero Beach Police Department is providing a police escort to policemen on bicycles and a motorcycle to help with the traffic in the difficult areas.
And one other thing, so if I'm there Friday morning at 8:30,
Mm-hmm.
front of the courthouse,
Yes.
then I can put the bicycle on the front of the bus. And when
And
Phil,
Oh, wait a minute.
when Phil gets off at the health department or over there at the veterans.
I don't think you got this right, Commissioner.
Hold on. Yeah, no. And then I can come over here and then ride to work.
Yeah, I don't think you're quite catching on.
I'm just, listen, that's going to be a rough day for the bicycle.
I think they're taking the bus to the courthouse. That's as close as you'd really want to consider it a ride.
No. I thought Phil was going to take,
The bus to the courthouse,
To
for
the
goodness
courthouse.
sakes.
Phil?
First of all, Phil Mattson, Indian River MPO. First of all, I want to point out that putting your bike on the bus is much easier than pedaling, I found. Second, I'm going to be taking it to the health department here. My particular house, that's the best bus route there, and then ride to the courthouse and double back.
Oh.
So I'm just going to escort everyone, so I'll be there for that purpose. Depends on where you live. Some of the buses have a more direct connection to the courthouse than mine does, but.
Wesley, half of your ride is on really safe dirt roads, so don't worry about it.
Just gotta watch out for that cow.
But as Jean said, if any of you would like us to ride in with you, we're more than happy to do that.
Commissioner O'Brien?
Thank you. Is there going to be a makeup day for that? Because I would really love to do it, but I have a meeting in Stewart Friday morning at 9:30, and that's a little far for me to ride.
That is a little
But
far for you.
if we could schedule another day,
Absolutely.
Okay,
You
I'll just
let
get a
us
hold of you
know
all
the
and-
day that will work for you. If you want to ride in when it's your next commissioners meeting or whatever, we're happy to do that.
okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
We'd love it. Thank you.
And
And
I'll-
is your wife going to ride too? 'Cause I know
Yeah,
she's
well,
a teacher, so.
She's a teacher, so that'd be kind of hard.
Yeah.
But if we want to do it in May during Bike Month,
Yeah.
it'd be hard for her.
No,
Yeah.
I'll be happy to.
Great.
And I would have to look for another rain date as well, as I have a commitment. But I just want you to know how much I appreciate all of your efforts in bike safety, bike travel, awareness in Indian River County. You show up to a lot of the MPO meetings, and you take the time to be outfitted for additional awareness. I do have appreciation for what you do. The chief is in the room. I used to have a bike on the back of my patrol vehicle in the sheriff's office, and when my car was in for service, I used to ride my bike 12 and a half miles from Sebastian to the sheriff's office, so much so that even if the car wasn't in for service, I did it pretty frequently. And 12 and a half miles is a lengthy ride, so I think that Commissioner Davis might be able to make that just a couple of mile ride. I didn't want to, you know.
No.
Feeling the pressure, Wes.
I'm going to schedule a root canal.
It's a great experience, and you will feel so much better at the end of the ride.
And Mr. Baird, you're welcome too.
Yeah, Joe, you know what?
I'll be out of town, but what I'd like to do. I do ride a bike, so it's not a problem, but I will be out Thursday and Friday, so I may reschedule with Commissioner O'Brien. I shall be out of the town starting tomorrow.
Well, we would love, if you want to schedule any time you want to do a ride-in, we have people who would be happy to ride with you.
You know, Commissioners, in an effort of solidarity, there are two people that we do give direction to. So if you'd like, I'd make a motion to direct the county attorney and the county administrator to partake in this.
He's in
No,
great
I actually
shape.
look
I mean,
forward
there's
to
no
it.
challenge there.
I'm just unfortunately out of town.
Well, we would love anybody, and like I said, if you want to reschedule another time when you're happy to do it, we'll be more than happy to send someone and ride with you in, and we'd
Well,
enjoy
Sharon,
it.
I'm very much looking forward to May 20th, this Friday. I'll also be starting at about 8 o'clock from the house, and I'm looking forward to meeting you at the courthouse at 8:30 for the last stretch into Indian River County.
Excellent,
Mr.
thank you.
Just in wrapping it up here, I just wanted to say that, you know, we make light of this, but really, it's not just about the month. It's about whenever people come into this community, just like we had the national recognition, it's one of those things because of your efforts. There's a lot of special things in this community, and this is just like a cherry on top every time somebody realizes one of these special things, and it's all because of the leadership that y'all provided.
Thank you.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll get a rain date. We'll get a rain date. From the house?
See you Friday. Sharon, thanks for coming today.
Bring the attorney, we might be able to ride all the way down.
You know, it's work at CBS Day Friday.
What?
Commissioner workday at CBS.
Oh. Huh.
A little further to the right.
There.
We'll now have the presentation of a proclamation recognizing May 15th through 21st, 2016 as National Police Week. This will be presented by Commissioner Davis and received by Sheriff Lohr and Chief Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is a proclamation exempting Wesley Davis from having to ride a bicycle. No. Welcome, Sheriff.
You can do it.
This is a proclamation recognizing May 15th through the 21st, 2016 as National Police Week. Whereas there are more than 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Indian River County Sheriff's Office and Indian River County Municipal Police Departments. And whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation which designated May 15th as National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which that date falls as National Police Week. And whereas, on average, one law enforcement officer is killed in the line of duty somewhere in the United States every 61 hours. Since the first known line of duty death in 1791. More than 20,000 U.S. law enforcement officers have made the ultimate sacrifice. And whereas a total of 1,439 law enforcement officers died in the line of duty in the past 10 years, or 144 per year. 123 law enforcement officers died in the line of duty in 2015. And whereas the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund honors and remembers those recently fallen law enforcement officers who have paid the ultimate sacrifice and given their lives to protect and serve. And whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty were honored during a wreath placement ceremony on the morning of May 16th at the Indian River County Courthouse. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that May 15th through the 21st, 2016, is recognized as National Police Week in honor of the service of law enforcement officers in our community and communities across the nation. And May 15th is recognized as Peace Officer Memorial Day in honor of the fallen officers and their families, and U.S. flags should be flown at half-staff. Adopted this 16th day of May, 2016, signed by Bob Solari, Chairman, Joseph E. Flesher, Vice Chairman, Wesley S. Davis, Peter D. O'Brien, and Tim Zort. Sheriff, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. On a somber week, we certainly appreciate the ceremony yesterday with the resources that we utilized, not only from the city of Vero Beach, but the county. 2015 was an unusual year in the state of Florida where we only lost 2 law enforcement officers, one from Okaloosa County in the Panhandle, Sheriff's Deputy, and one from the Ocala Police Department in Central Florida. So 2015, relatively speaking, was a blessed year for the state of Florida. However, it was a horrible year for the country. As we all know, the dynamics have changed in the last 3 years in law enforcement, and we're working hard to change that dynamic or that pendulum. We often think back about that late September day in 1986 when Indian River County Sheriff's Office lost Corporal Richard Raskowski as the only member of the Indian River County Sheriff's Office, or only member of Indian River County that's lost their lives in the line of duty. And we worry and we pray about these men and women every single day. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Sheriff, it was a very nice ceremony. Having the opportunity to be there to witness it. And I never will forget the first time I heard you say it, how there's nothing routine anymore about a routine traffic stop.
That's right.
And whenever you have the men and women in blue, men and women in white or green, and even the fish and wildlife, these law enforcement officers, they're doing something that, well, every day they wear that bulletproof vest for a reason, and it's not because it's cold outside.
That's right.
And as a community, we can't thank them enough, because if you want to see what a lawless society looks like, just look at some of these countries that are having problems with their currencies and because of the price of oil and how the governments are being toppled. We're blessed. But we're blessed because of the service that these men and women provide to us every day. And thank you and the other chiefs for their leadership. And God bless.
Thank you.
And Sheriff, I'd like to reiterate some of the things I said yesterday. I mean, cannot be happier to live in a county like Indian River County, where I wake up, go to work, and never worry about my safety, where I spend most of my day apart from my wife, and she's out and about the community for good parts of the day and never have to worry about her safety. And I understand that a lot of that reason is because of the officers in your department and the different municipalities. Living in the city of Vero Beach, I certainly credit a lot of it to the municipal police force in the city of Vero Beach. And also, like Commissioner Davis said, there is no routine stop. Clearly, almost every stop that officer makes is routine, but you never know which one will go wrong. So that added stress is certainly very real for all the workers in your department, but it certainly does provide for a community which most of us are very happy and proud to live in. So thank you and your officers for everything you do every day to make ours a great community.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Sheriff. Having 3 members in law enforcement in our family, whenever you hear of an incident happen, you always start thinking which family member was on duty that day. And I remember that somber night in 1986 when Richard Rakowski was shot. Remember it very well. Happened to be on duty myself that night. But thank you for all that your men and women do, and as well as the cities and municipalities, all that they do to keep all of us safe all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
What's your name? Of the Indian River Land Trust on a proposed Oyster Bar Marsh Trail Partnership Project between Indian River County and the Indian River Land Trust. Good morning, Mr. Grudens.
Good morning, Commissioner Solari, and good morning, County Commissioners. Greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about the proposed Oyster Bar Marsh Trail, a partnership with the Indian River Land Trust and Indian River County. The Oyster Bar Marsh is located on the barrier island to the south, down toward the county border. You see in square outline there, just above the Round Island County Park in the bottom right corner of the screen, and across from a myriad of conservation lands that are owned and managed by the county with partial ownership from the state, and then in darker green, lands acquired by the Indian River Land Trust. A little bit of background on this, and I'm sure you're mostly all familiar with this, but going back to 2001, the county acquired 96 acres with bond funds and with matching funds from the Florida Communities Trust, which is the FCT mentioned there. The total funds expended were about $708,000 for those lands. And as part of the FCT grant that occur, the county has a certain commitment to provide public access of one type or another. Each grant is different, and I know that the concept behind the grants from FCT was to create a recreational trail along this impounded wetland property. But unfortunately, we're not able to acquire enough properties to be able to open it up for contiguous trail access. Fast forward about 14, 15 years, the Land Trust acquired 30 acres, expending about $307,000 in 2015 to be able to piece together more of that peninsula for public trail access. The county contains a key parcel with a remnant oak hammock that has access on Highway, excuse me, A1A. Here you see a map of that that property a little bit more zoomed in, and the parcel breakdown. In light green is the county property, in the dark green are the land trust parcels acquired in 2015, and then the orange are a couple of pieces that we've been trying to acquire but haven't been successful in, but I'll talk more about those in a minute. There are really three major goals for this project, and it's not dissimilar to the Lagoon Greenway project, which I know you're all familiar with, and which was a partnership with the county and the land trust and others. And the first goal is to create this public-private partnership I'm here to talk about to develop and maintain this multi-use recreational trail, simply put. Second one is to provide for the passive recreational educational opportunities that are appropriate for the natural resources and appropriate to the trail system there. At the Lagoon Greenway, we've got hiking, walking, jogging, bicycling. People bring their dogs out there, and all those uses get along very well. It's been our experience. Third goal is to continue to protect and enhance and conserve the natural resources that we have on this pretty unique property, this nicely intact wetland property with these trails that ring the outside edge. And similar again to the Lagoon Greenway, where we continue to abate the exotics and the invasive plants that are there while continuing to keep it as a recreational trail. So you see here the basic tenets of the Oyster Bar March Trail Plan, which include, as you see to the right, the trailhead and parking area along A1A, which runs sort of north-south there on the top right of the screen. Parking for 15 to 20 cars, a parking area not unlike the one at the Lagoon Greenway on a stone base or a shell base. A 2-mile trail that would head out to an interior overlook into one of the large ponds where a lot of waterfowl overwinter, a pavilion, covered or uncovered observation deck pavilion along the way, and then some, and actually this map doesn't show it, but in your backup material you'll see there are 2 small boardwalks at the bottom of the trail to bypass that one southern property that we're not able to, the landowner's not willing to sell or donate. So a couple of small boardwalks would go in to bypass that property in the very southern tip of the, I think I can go back for a second and just show you. You see the orange at the very tip. So the boardwalks there would bypass that. Okay. Here you see, again, if you look at the map, you see the place that says pavilion. This is a picture right at that point where that pavilion would be constructed. And it's a beautiful scene of the lagoon down there. You feel like in your little wilderness area. Here you see a summary of the proposed costs for this project, the design and construction costs. This is a little bit more simplified from your backup material. There are 6 main elements: design and engineering, then the parking and entrance area up along A1A, the trailhead kiosk, and signage, including directional signage and interpretive signage, the pavilion I mentioned earlier, and 3 boardwalks totaling $150,000, and then some habitat restoration as part of the mitigation and as part of the overall need to keep that habitat intact, and then some contingency costs of about 15%. The Land Trust has already committed $100,000 to this project. Our board is fully supportive of a partnership with this project. This is in addition to the $307,000 that we've spent on acquiring some of those lands, and with that, at a full cost of $347,000, the county would be responsible for $247,000. But as history has shown on the Lagoon Greenway and other projects, the county would be eligible for a grant from the Florida Inland Navigation District, FIND, at 50%. And so if we spent the full 15% contingency and the county applied and received that grant, the county would be in for the project for a total of $123,000. again, I think we saw that the public-private partnership at Lagoon Greenway was quite effective in that similarly at the Oyster Bar Marsh, the Land Trust would work to provide the overall promotion, coordination, and tracking of the project. The county would coordinate to secure the additional funding. We would assist with that. The permits, oversee the development process, and help to manage those trails and facilities. A little more specifically, when we look at post-construction, is the maintenance responsibilities. And in this case, the county very much, again, like the Lagoon Greenway, would be responsible for the garbage and dog station pickup, the security. Currently, the county opens and closes a gate at Round Island every night and could just scoot over to the Oyster Bar Marsh Trail and do the same. The entrance, landscape maintenance, trail mowing, and I will say that the Indian River Mosquito Control District also does mowing of these impoundments on a regular basis, about once a month. And the other good news on the trail mowing in this case is that there really isn't a whole lot of grass in this impoundment road because it was all redone by the Mosquito Control District about 4 or 5 years ago. The Lagoon Greenway has a lot of grass on that impoundment, and the Oyster Bar Marsh Trail doesn't. And then, of course, maintenance of the boardwalk overlook area for the structures. Now, when I tried to get with Joe's office on this, they suggested calling back in July. I'm not quite sure what that was about, but actually, I haven't actually talked to Joe about this, but have talked to other staff about this project. Roland Du Bois is fully aware of it, and we've been in communication with Beth Powell on it. The Land Trust would be responsible for the trailhead kiosk information and keeping that up to date, providing serve as a contact for users and nearby residents, manage the volunteers that would continue to do cleanups or start to do cleanups, I guess in this case, but we always do cleanups at Lagoon Greenway. Another good bit of news is that the Lagoon Greenway, every year we have to mulch the main trail out to the impoundment trail, and that would not be necessary on this property because there's not a wet area along the trail. We'd promote the public use and provide educational programming through our staff and volunteers, tours, and the like. And really, we're looking at the same partners that we had at Lagoon Greenway: Land Trust, the county, the Mosquito Control District. If grants are made from FIND and the permitting process and funding from St. John's River Water Management District. So that pretty much sums up the presentation. Any questions on what you've seen here?
No, it was, Ken, it was great to review the project. I know all of us had the opportunity to take a look at it. I want to thank you for your dedicated efforts, and you know, my input was, I think this is going to be well used. I think that this is a great attractor, and if you were going to use the parking lot or make the parking lot out of crushed shell, then perhaps maybe you might want to consider putting in the optimum amount of spaces, because it'll still have a great appearance. It'll earmark the location, and I believe that you're going to see quite a few people coming here to walk this trail.
I agree. I think we build it and they will come, just like the Lagoon Greenway, which has been wildly successful beyond what I had imagined.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Davis?
No, I had the opportunity to walk this already and to see the spectacular views down there.
Yeah.
But one thing that I really appreciate is the passion that your board and the Indian River Land Trust brings forward for projects like this and our environment and natural resources. I applaud that because that while everybody has the passion, I think everybody, specifically the Land Trust, understands that having access for people to enjoy these natural resources that we have in our community is so vital to preserving them and conserving them for generations to come. And I like it also because it's similar to the Humane Society. We have a partnership with them. They're volunteers. They have a passion for animals. And and they do it better than we can't hire somebody to have that burn 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, similar to what the Land Trust has with projects like this. So it's comforting to know that we've got the leadership of your organization, that if the government would just kind of get out of your way, all the things we can get accomplished, and this is just one of many. So this is exciting.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think very, very worthwhile project. The community will benefit from it immensely. Was down at the Round Island area to the south, probably about a month or so ago. And it was hard to find a parking place on that day for people, whether they were kayaking or walking the trail and things. One thing procedurally, just, and not as a negative to the project in any means, but just in general as a policy, when we look at doing a partnership agreement, I think we should just extend whatever the responsibility side is, the county is, at least to put a price tag of understanding on it, that we know we're going to do those things. We're down there anyway, like locking the gate, to go across the street and lock the other one, not a big deal. But just to kind of put a tally to those and other projects that we look at undertaking, just so we know, we've looked at the associated costs, we understand what they are, and we agree, that that's going to be our ongoing contribution. But since we're already doing maintenance, unlock and lock in that same area, they're not making a special, trip to go down to that area. So in this case, I think it'll be a pretty small item. But that might be just something when we undertake partnership agreements that we balance both sides, just to know what all the numbers are.
That's a good point. Now, I certainly applaud your work, Ken, but
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say that we all appreciate it. Apparently, we all appreciate this project and have great passion for moving forward and conserving for Indian River County. But you placed this on the agenda as well for later discussion, that you move forward.
Yes, we did.
And in addition, this is in your district. And I believe that you have a great passion for it, and I believe you should have the opportunity to move forward with any of the motions necessary to move this forward, if there is a motion in the future. So if that's the case, I believe if you relinquish your responsibility at this time as chairman, you would be able to make that motion.
I'd be happy to relinquish it for a moment to the vice chairman. And with that, I would like to say, again, I thank the Land Trust. I'm a regular walker of the Indian River Lagoon Greenway. That's regularly well-traveled. It's a great asset to our community. I'll notice on the financial side that we already have money in the 5-year plan, which would cover an expense like this, so we're not adding anything to the budget, which I believe is important. And I think that this is the type of project which we have a responsibility to provide for the citizens of Indian River County. We spent, with the last bond issue, roughly $50 million of the citizens' money, but also $17 million of other, citizens at the end of the day, but other agencies' money. So we have $67 million from the last bond issue, but these lands aren't doing much for the citizens yet. What the Land Trust did with the Indian River Lagoon got that parcel up and going. This will be another parcel which I believe the citizens will appreciate that. So with that, I'll be happy to make a motion to go ahead with the partners.
But you have to, for the
Give up the gavel
council,
first.
I thought I gave it up.
council's interest,
I thought I gave up the gavel.
for the public to know that
Pass him the
you've
gavel.
done,
He
actually
wants the
done.
gavel.
He wants the
I don't
gavel.
want the
Okay.
gavel, just, we have to do it for the public's
No, okay, very good. So the gavel is fully given up.
Here it is.
What about the little wooden doohickey thing?
Well, I don't know if we're going to be using it.
When you go walk the Greenway, do you ride your bike to the Greenway?
No, I do not ride my bike.
There you go.
Public
Yeah, I know.
transportation?
But this new one, I'm sure Jackie and I will ride the bike down A1A and then probably bike the Greenway itself, because a lot of people bike the Indian River Lagoon Greenway.
I thought you were going
bikers
to
on
say
that
and
reg-
call 911 to bring you back or something.
No, Wesley, that's another commissioner.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
I don't think he was finished.
He wasn't finished with the
Well,
motion.
with that, I'll be happy to make a motion to go ahead in partnership with the Indian River Land Trust, any other partners which we have to do, similar to the last public-private partnership with the Lagoon Greenway, and to go ahead and make application to find for matching funds.
And I'll second that.
Thank you.
For discussion.
And we have a motion by Commissioner Chairman, former Chairman Solari.
That sounds
He's
good.
not giving it
It's got a good
back.
ring to it.
Seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any further discussion, gentlemen?
Just real quick, in seeing more of these to come, and I'm glad that this is not a budget item that we're changing or adding to the budget. It's something that we allocate. And Commissioners, as you know, I do a lot of charity auctions throughout the year. Environmental Learning Center, Harbor Branch Oceanographics Foundation, and including the Land Trust. And they called me. I never will forget the first time they did this. They said, Wesley, we'd like for you to be the auctioneer. I said, great, what are you selling? He said, well, nothing. And I said, well, I've sold
you specialize in that.
I said, this is a little bit strange, but tell me about it. And so Ann Taylor, she pulled up, she said, what we're going to do is we're just going to get you up there and you're just going to ask for money. All right. So we did.
Did you have any high bidders?
You know, we raised $100,000 in 5 minutes at Rock City Gardens the first time. And it was another $85,000 when I did it this last year. And so, and I mean literally in 5 minutes. So there's going to be more of this to come, and so I'm really pleased, Commissioners, Chairman Solari, that we allocate fundings for these programs on an annual basis, because this is going to be an annual partnership that's going to get us where we need to be with the environmental lands that we have purchased, that you're very concerned about also. So,
well, I want to thank you, Commissioner Davis, for your donated auction services, which are one of a kind. And yes, we've been highly successful with them, because no one can say no to you. So it's been a delight. And then our board, took the commitment from the 80, I think it was 83,000 up to 100. In addition to that, so that's exactly where those funds are committed from. And I appreciate all the commissioners' support in this. And we're excited because this is actually the third project that we have online for the public as part of our providing access. The third one is the Tony Robinson Waterfront Trail, which is up on US 1 off 79th Street. And it's a sort of a microcosm, again, of the Lagoon Greenway. And so it's nice to have these different lagoon access trail, boardwalk kind of projects in different corners of the county.
well, what you're doing is so important in the charitable side of it, because whenever you have something tangible that your members can embrace. It was like the Samaritan Center when they needed playground equipment. I was able to get Jake Owen and Marty Fish sing Garth Brooks' Friends in Low Places and raise $10,000 like that. And so this model that you're doing is right on point, and I'm excited to be a part of it anytime I can be, so thank you.
I may as well put a kudos out to Ann Taylor, since she's here with us for heading that part up, too. Yeah. So she's our Director of Philanthropy and Marketing.
Thank you. Well, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Solari, seconded by Commissioner Davis. Is there any further discussion from
Just
the board?
one, you are going to return the gavel after the vote.
I don't know.
Is that part of the motion? And I get my gavel back?
I didn't get the whole kit with it. In addition, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak regarding this decision or moving forward? Seeing none? Ready to call the question?
Actually, I've just got a comment to the, if I may, Acting Chair. Certainly, because of the public-private partnership aspect of this, we'll work on whatever details we need to be consistent with the state statutes and requirements and make sure that we get this done.
Thank you, Counselor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. At this time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pass the gavel back to you.
Thank you. I was worried there for a minute. I wasn't sure if
Although
Brian
it was
would,
it was a nice opportunity to work from the extreme right.
Ken,
We've
thank
got
you
an
very
hour, so you're good.
Okay, good. Well, we moved 14D1 up to after this item, so Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If the board will remember, a little over a month ago, we approved the purchase of a parcel of land in Sebastian from Jane Schnee. She had bought the land on her own and worked to maintain it and create a scrub habitat. At that meeting, I brought up whether we might want to recognize Mrs. Schnee's contribution by renaming it, but we wanted to make sure she was okay with that. And then before I go any further, Dylan, just to make sure, we do have a policy where we can name things like this, and we're following that policy.
To the Commissioner, yes. Back in 2011, this board adopted a resolution, and in that resolution, it talked about requests for name dedications or non-conforming commemorative works, and it essentially is on a case-by-case basis as considered by the Board of County Commissioners, so certainly be within the realm of our policy.
Great. Gentlemen, in your backup is a couple emails between myself and Mrs. Schnee. And Mrs. Jane, why don't you come on up to the podium here, please? She very graciously acknowledged that she would be okay with naming the property after her family name or her name. She gave a couple of proposals, and then in the backup, she requested that we leave out the word scrub jay. She was afraid people would think it's only scrub jay habitat, not just scrub, and also they might wander on there and cause damage, so I'm good with that. But before we get to that, Jane, would you like to just say a couple words about the property? And I just wanted to have you here to thank you for your very generous offer to make this available to the county at a very reasonable price and for preservation. So anything you'd like to say?
I'll just give you a couple minutes background on the property and why I ended up with it. I volunteered just about 7 years ago now with Beth Powell, your conservation land manager, to help monitor the Florida scrub jays that are in the various conservation areas and private property around the county. So I've been doing that actually for about 7 years now. And I knew about this property because scrub jays were on there. Scrub jays have been on that property for a while. It was slated for development, and then I guess when the market went down, a bank foreclosed on the property. And I contacted the bank that was out in Dallas, somewhere in Texas, and the guy happened to be a bird lover. So he convinced his management to sell it to me, you know, for the price I paid of $100,000. Of course, they originally wanted a lot more. But I have to sort of thank him for, you know, making it possible, because he, you know, sort of twisted his boss's arms to sell it to me cheap. And I just wanted to plan on, if anything would happen to me, that the property would be in good hands. So I'm happy that the county will purchase it from me and maintain it, you know, for scrub jays and the other things that are on scrub habitat. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Davis.
Mr. Nate, I think that, you know, similar to the land trust, as I mentioned earlier, you as a private individual and your burn for the passion of conservation, it is clearly, this is exactly what I think works so well, is you bought this probably at the bottom of the market, unlike some of the purchases that the county's made with the land, but at the bottom of the market, and now we're able to take advantage of that through your generosity in this. And I think that in addition to that, commissioners, you know, we have a lot of mitigation sometimes we've got to do, and this was going to add to, quite frankly, a larger ecosystem up there. That larger ecosystem that was started by Martha Windsor a long time ago around Pelican Island, right, directly to the west. And we all know that as you can add to these ecosystems, the more beneficial they are to wildlife habitat, right, and conservation. So this is exciting.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Ms. Nate, I want to thank you for your dedicated volunteer efforts with the county. And this is an overwhelming gift that you're providing for all of the citizens. When I think the term was the opportunity to purchase, again, this is a tenth of the price that land is truly worth. And I agree with you about the scrub jay terminology, because I'm sure there's gopher tortoises there and right, a lot of great inhabitants of the habitat. With that, you know, I did review with council the naming of a facility, and we've had some great discussion and debate over it for many years in different lights and different commissions. And I think it's just a wonderful idea to have a name. I don't know what name will be finally selected, but something along the lines of the Schnee Family Preserve is nice, because it will be a draw. And I just want to thank you, because quite frankly, you could have done a whole lot of other things with this property and gone on a whole lot of vacations with the proceeds. So instead, you're going to give everyone here, the citizens, a way to have their own staycation and see nature and visit it as they do in many other preserves. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Brien?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your backup, Mrs. Schnee had recommended 2 name choices, and then discussions with her this morning. I think we both like the Jane Schnee Scrub Preserve, so I'd like to make a motion that we rename the Sebastian Scrub as the Jane Schnee Scrub Preserve.
Second. We have a motion from Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Zork. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Okay, well,
Schnee.
thank you. Thank you for naming it after me.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
You know, it just feels good when we can do some good things once in a while, you know?
It does.
This is what makes Indian River great.
Yeah.
We'll move on to informational items, and there are 2 I'd like to mention. One is that quite proud to be able to say that Indian River County Emergency Management Program is granted full accreditation by the Emergency Management Accreditation Program. I'd like to congratulate the emergency services for a job well done. And the second one is last week we talked about the All Aboard Florida 90% plans, which are sometimes called the 100% plans right now. And just want to let the public know that there's going to be a public review of those plans held in the B building at the County Administration Complex, which is the building across the street from this one. This will be on Wednesday, May 25th, between 1 and 3 p.m. I'd like to thank Chris Moore and his office for putting that together. Again, May 25th, between 1 and 3 p.m. With that, we'll move to the consent agenda. And on the consent agenda, I'd like to pull 8E. Gentlemen, anything else you'd like to pull from the?
Chairman, I'd like to pull item F.
Pull item F. Anything else?
To the chair, we need to pull, I believe, Bill, is it 8C, the
Yes.
utility easements, 8C as well?
Whoops, that's what I meant to pull, was 8C. Mispronounced it, so it's 8C.
Thank you.
And I'll ask if there's anybody from the public who wishes to pull anything from the consent agenda.
Approve as amended.
We have a motion
Second.
to approve as amended by Commissioner Flesher, seconded by Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Mr. DeBrawl, 8C.
Thank you. This is an easement for the, I'm sorry, Bill DeBrawl on behalf of the County Attorney's Office. This is an easement for utilities for the Boys and Girls Club expansion that they've recently completed. We added a corrected sketch and legal description. I will hand this to the clerk. We've already swapped it out in the package for the chairman to sign. The only thing that we're doing is just changing Exhibit B. There are a few calls that have been clarified, and additional information has been added to the sketch. Staff's recommendation is to approve.
Thank you very much.
Move approval.
Motion from Commissioner O'Brien. I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item F is the library system has received some donations, and they're using some of those donations to purchase some 3D printers. We already have one installed at the main library, and then the 2 other libraries, the North County and Brackett Library, will each get a 3D printer. I just think this is so cool that we'll have these 3D printers here in our library system. And I've asked staff to have, is it Josh? Josh, come on up. Josh is the one kind of heading this up for us, and I just thought if he could give us a couple minutes telling us, you know, what's going on with these things. And these are the things that can print out prosthetics and things like that. And I think this is just so cool we have this technology here. So Josh, tell name and address, please, and then tell us a little bit about the printers.
Hi, my name is Josh Perez. I'm the systems coordinator for the libraries. And the 3D printer is a device where you can get a model, a 3D model from the internet or that you make yourself, and you can feed it into your computer and then send it to the 3D printer, which will take plastic filament from a spool, and it feeds it through an extruder through the top, and it will layer by layer create a plastic object. But it will, the great thing about it is you can create anything. So if you've got the ingenuity, you can find, you need any kind of item, any kind of design, you take it and you can make it. And we think it's just the cutting edge of technology, and that's why we wanted to get it, is it's such a unique thing for people, and especially for kids, to see something on the screen, see a 3D model, hit a button, and then watch the printer make it, and then actually have a little plastic device in your hand from that. So that's why we were excited about it.
And so we could download a file that would say print a gavel out of the plastic, and then Vice Chairman Flesher could have one to keep him happy while he's waiting and waiting.
Exactly.
And then how durable is the plastic? Because I have a boat, and a lot of the cup holders and bait holder things you get, they get in the sun and they crack, and would this plastic be durable and hold up well?
Yeah, I've actually been surprised at how durable it is. We've created a few things like bird feeders and little plastic holders
Can
like
you make
that.
a squirrel-proof bird feeder?
You can make anything. That's why, as long as you can find it on the internet, which there are a lot of sites where people who are into this will create them and then provide them for free. So things like bird feeders or anything like that a lot of people are into, you'll find it, feed their design into the computer, and the 3D printer can create it.
Okay, and then you guys are also going to be having classes on how to do this, so the general public will know how to do it and
Yeah,
things
and
like
that was the safest way we could think of is we will actually do the printing, but they can see it working, because it really it's a great thing to see, the actual printer just moving around and extruding the plastic into the design, and to be able to, like I said, choose something off the internet, see it on the screen, and then actually see it come out.
Yeah, that's great. And then it seemed like the cost to do this is relatively cheap. You're just going to charge for the amount of plastic that they utilize, and that seems pretty cheap to me from what I see here.
Yeah, the filament's not expensive, and then there's a few other things like the tack that goes along the bottom of the printer, and there's the time and electricity that it takes, wear and tear, but for the most part, it's not expensive.
Right. So I just think this is just tremendous, and I applaud you guys for bringing this forward. I will mention, my son is going to graduate school at University of Florida, and he's working in a lab where they do soft tissue 3D printing. So they're printing out jellyfish and brains and cancer cells and veins and stuff for research, and it is just phenomenal what they're doing with this stuff. This is really cool that we have this here. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'd like to go ahead and approve staff recommendation.
Second. We have a motion from Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Flesher. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Gosh, that's great. I'm looking forward to seeing that thing work. Thank you.
We'll move on to item 9, constitutional officers and government agencies. Indian River County Sheriff requests for funds from Law Enforcement Forfeiture Trust Fund be used to purchase equipment and support programs and agencies.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Flesher, seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. And this is a good time for a 10-minute break.
Great speech, Sheriff.
We'll reconvene the meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. We'll go to public hearings. We have a public hearing to consider the revenue distribution formula for the local option gas tax distribution percentages. And basically, this is just how we distribute the gas tax between the county and different municipalities, but a public hearing is required. I'll ask if any of the commissioners have any questions for staff before we go on.
No, sir.
Being none, we will open the public hearing. Would anybody from the public wish to discuss the distribution of the local option gas tax? There being no one from the public, we will close the public hearing. Gentlemen.
Move approval.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Flesher. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. We will now go to public discussion items. Request to speak from Kenny Godfrey regarding 99th Street Road. Is Mr. Godfrey here? Name and address for the record, please.
James K. Godfrey, 13515 101 Street, Fellsmere. The reason I'm coming here is because when I had my sand mine fight with y'all to get my mine open, I showed you about 120 different ways to try to get out of my property, and you turned every one of them down. The one you came up with was on a street called 99th Street, and you eventually okayed it. 10 years later, the neighbor across the street closes half the road. So I'm here to ask you, what are we going to do about this? And then after you tell me, then I might say something else to, you're telling me here to keep it just to this. So I'm going to come back to the next meeting to talk about something else. But I'm only going to talk to you about the man closing half the road that the county made me build to get out of my property. Now, the stipulations was that Kenny had to upkeep and maintain that road, which I did. I had a problem with y'all's grader coming in there tearing my road up. I've been down here about 40 times to tell y'all and talked to Mike Wesley Davis and called him and said, listen, this man's not supposed to be grading my road. Now, I don't care if he grades it if he don't tear it up, but the man was just systematically tearing the road up. Mr. Davis said, Kenny, this is the first person that's ever come to me and asked me to be taken off the grading list, okay? So for 10 years, I've been fighting y'all to tell you that this man is tearing up a road that you made me build, okay? So he's finally succeeded in bringing this to a head, your grader people. Now, I can't blame it on him because he's got a boss in this county somewhere. So I'm asking you, what are y'all going to do and what do you want me to do about this road that you made me build? I got all the paperwork.
Mr.
Some
Chairman.
people are trying to act like, Godfrey, we didn't tell you to build that road.
Kenny, let me try to help you. I drove out there Saturday or Sunday. I forget what day. I saw exactly what it looks like. My question is probably as much either from Mr. Baird or Chris Mora, or maybe even Stan. Stan, why or what is it in the policy? What was it that made that the county made Mr. Godfrey come out on 99th Street? There's got to be I know there's a reason. I need some institutional knowledge about why that was decided.
Chris Mora, Public Works Director. When Mr. Godfrey proposed his sand mine, I believe he's already got one driveway for his home along that area, along Babcock. He has a driveway for that. When we allow another driveway for a commercial operation like a sand mine, we try to go off of a side street, a local street if we can, and to minimize the number of connections to a county road like 507 or Babcock. So since 99th Street was available for use, the site plan that Mr. Godfrey submitted to the county showed the 40 feet of Fellsmere Water Control District right-of-way, plus an additional 40-foot easement to the south of that drainage district right-of-way for access and drainage purposes. So we figured, well, with the 40 feet of drainage district property plus an additional 40, he had 80 feet to work with on 99th Street to go from Babcock about 150 feet east to his driveway.
West.
East.
From Babcock too. Okay.
Babcock
I was coming
east
out.
to his
Okay.
driveway, right.
All right.
So Mr. Godfrey's correct. He built a road within that 80 feet. Under the 1975 agreement that the county has with the drainage district, we have been grading that roadway. And Mr. Godfrey does some of the grading himself to keep it in good condition for his trucks to get in and out. But the county has routinely graded it under that. We don't own the road, but we do grade it under that old agreement.
But just so I have this right, the 40 feet, there's 80 feet right-of-way from, that is owned by Felsmer Water Control District.
There's 40 feet of right-of-way owned by Felsmer Water Control District on the north side.
Okay.
There's an additional 40 feet of drainage and access easement to the south of that.
Owned by?
It shows on the site plan as an easement, an access easement. I'm assuming it's owned by the property owner to the south, but with prescriptive rights in easement for access. So
And that would
Mr.
be-
Godfrey went forward and built the road based on that 80 feet.
Okay, and so then that's a recorded easement, I'm assuming?
Well, we haven't been able to find a recorded easement yet. We've been looking for it. We haven't been able to find one. The south of 99th, it's in the city of Felsmer. North of 99th, where Mr. Godfrey is, it's in the unincorporated county. We haven't been able to find that easement, even though it showed on the site plan that Mr. Godfrey's engineer prepared.
All right, let me straighten him out.
Excuse Mr. Chairman.
Let's, we'll be back with you in a minute. Let's hear from Mr. Bowling first, if we could.
Thank you. For the record, Stan Bowling, Community Development Director. One other item in addition to what Chris Moore mentioned is in terms of the access route. There was also, at the time that the application came in, a requirement that their on-site haul road to get off the site with their hauling material be at least 300 feet from the closest occupied residential structure. And if you look at the site plan that was approved many years ago, there's a 300-foot arc that you see close to where the access is, and they needed to stay out of that 300-foot arc, and that led, as well as what Chris Moore shared, to using the 99th Street connection for their access to meet that special setback requirement that's in our mining regulations.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, all right, Kenny, you got a 40-acre parcel there?
Yes.
All right, so that should be a quarter mile by a quarter mile square?
Yep.
Right. Okay, and so with that being the case, that you still deem that a quarter mile area is too much, it is not large enough to have two entrances off of Babcock?
Right, my recollection is that there was no place along Babcock they could connect to and meet that 300 foot from an occupied structure, and that pushed it down to 99th Street. In addition to what Chris Moore said about using the side street connection that's already there at Babcock.
So had the 99th Street option not been there, would Mr. Godfrey have been eligible for a mining permit as per our, I'm going to say, land development regulations for a mine?
I think he probably, to meet the 300 foot, I mean, he may have had to extend at 99th Street further to the east and maybe had a driveway come there. That's conceivable, but nothing, I mean, it would have been more extraordinary measures to try to meet that 300 feet.
All right, so we have but our rules made him go there, so I'm clear on that now.
Can I say one thing?
Let me make sure I got it right in my mind, then you can change my mind or educate me on it. Just make sure, our rules say that we have to come out within, or you can't come out within 300 feet of an occupied residence, and that's the only place on his Babcock frontage that would have in fact been the case.
Well, again, he has a lot of frontage on the, quote, 99th Street, even further to the east. But this was one that his engineer found would meet our requirements, and and it lined up with what Public Works was looking for in terms of the connection point to Babcock.
I'm trying to find a simple solution to it, if it's an option. And I'm not saying that it is, but I just want to make sure there's no place that he would meet our code for him to come out on Babcock.
That's correct.
Okay.
And just, the question I have is, if he moves the access road just slightly to the north and gets out of the easement parcel and onto the right-of-way parcel, would he meet the 300 feet?
That's a good question. I see what you're saying.
I think if the northern edge of the travelway It looks like he could meet it if the northern edge of the travelway stays just outside of the 300 feet.
So
I mean, it's going to be very close.
Okay,
Very,
so
very
I
close to
guess
do
the
it.
dispute is the southern property that's owned by the neighbor, there may or may not be an access easement, and that's why the neighbor is claiming, but there is right-of-way, so if the road is just shifted to the north,
Of the canal.
yeah, well, north into the right-of-way parcel, not the easement parcel.
Yeah, well, what it is north of the road is immediately south of the ditch right now. And so therefore, you'd have to put it on the north side of the ditch.
Okay, I didn't know there was a ditch right
Well,
there.
or,
Yeah.
or pipe the ditch.
North of the ditch, like I said. Okay.
And that would get Mr. Godfrey away from his neighbor's property.
If it still met our code as far as being within
300 feet.
300 yards of occupied residence.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, can I ask Kenny some quick questions?
Sure.
Kenny, is it the same property owner that owns the parcel south of you, or has it changed ownership since you started your mind?
Same. Let me tell y'all what happened here, okay?
All right.
Your greater man has pissed this neighbor off to the south so bad, he wants to close this road. Okay, do you understand? Go look at the road. I tell all y'all to go look at it. The road is completely falling apart, okay? About 2 weeks ago, y'all come out there and put a berm back in front of the man's property, the road and bridge, okay? Y'all hauled dirt in there. You put the berm back in there that he supposedly said you were encroaching on his property more and more. Okay, what it was, your greater man was coming down the road, and the water there historically run to the east. It never ran to Babcock, okay? But y'all have graded that road so much that the road is low, and it's got a hole in it, okay? And it holds water. But I told them the simple way to fix it was to put you some dirt in that hole that y'all have created by grading it and force that water back to the east. Okay, all these people come out there from Road and Bridge, and I'm sitting there just keeping my mouth shut, listening to all this crazy stuff they're saying. They come up with cutting the hump out of the road so the water will go to Babcock, okay? And I was trying to tell them in a nice way, 1/4 mile of water running that way will run right across Babcock and wash 99th Street out. That's why there's a hump in there. That's why they made me pour the apron. From the apron this way, it had to go down a little bit, and it hit a swale that y'all made me build. Kenny didn't want to build none of this because that ain't Kenny's property. The neighbor has given me a right-of-way, okay? But it was for another way to go in there. But they had come in when they seen I found a way out. They said, okay, Kenny, well, here, just come out 99th Street, because I showed them about 100 different ways to come out of there. And I'll tell you the easy fix on it. Mr. Screws owned that property before. That's who it went through, he lost it, okay? Remember when the kid got killed in the Grove and got chopped up?
HT's grandson.
He turned the land back to farm credit, okay? I went to the auction, I bought it, okay? When he gave y'all a 25-foot right-of-way across the front of that property for $1, he wrote that up so tight that it says, not only can I use it any manner I want, not only can I park my trucks on there, I can go anywhere I want to go, come and go off that property. But not only me, the person that comes behind me. So what I was telling all these people that don't listen, because they're not here to help you, they're here to stop you. I said, listen, the guy over there's got grandfather rights.
Talk to us.
No, I'm just telling you, on the other side of the street, I ain't talking to them, but the guy on the other side of the street where the welding factory is, you keep having problems with the code enforcement, okay? He's exercising his grandfather rights that was there, that this guy had. And all I was trying to tell him, look, you're making a big problem out of nothing. As far as my other driveway down there, that's 1,000 feet down there from where they're talking about. I got one coming out that, my own personal driver from the tree farm.
Yes.
Okay? That driveway don't interfere with that. What it is, they come up with these rules. Oh, you got to stay 175 feet to stop sign. Oh, you got to stay 300 feet from that house. But when you put 300 feet on a radius, what does it turn into? 600 feet. So you got 3 houses on the other side of the street, and between me and them is a road that is more or less a truck route. I've been hauling dirt my whole life up that road. If I want to haul it from there, I'm going to go on that road. If I haul it from C-54, if I haul it from Fishers, Black Hawk Quarry, I've been driving that road my whole life, okay? So this truck traffic that y'all are so worried about, you act like there's never been none on that road. It's there constantly. You more or less should say Babcock's a truck route. But anyway, like I said.
Help me with the easement. So,
let me tell you, the guy gave me an easement. Now, if they'll remember, because when you live it, you don't forget it. So when they told me, Kenny, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, I said, okay. I went to the guy over here that's trying to say that, you know, the road's on his property. He knew the road was on his property. They knew the road was on his property. The easement I had to jump across 99th Street, go into the fish farm. I got it. I'm not, you know, I got it right here. I'll show you the easement.
You got a copy?
And it turns and goes that way. Oh, no, they turned that down, Kenny. That's 3 driveways. That's a driveway over here, a driveway over here, and a driveway over here. Like I said, it was everything in the world to stop somebody. This is one man trying to make work for himself, okay? So anyway, sure, I got all that right here, and they got it too.
When you say you got a copy of the easement, is it a legal description, recorded, or is it just a drawing?
This is the one where I was going to go through the fish farm. So if a man's going to give you a right-of-way to go through the fish farm, I don't think he's got no problem with you driving down the street. But another guy come to manage the farm. This isn't the owner doing this. This is a guy he's leased the farm to has come close the road and done all this. He thinks y'all are going to come to him. The water district's going to come to him. The city's going to come to him, and I'm going to come to him and buy it. I said, son, you'll be 175,000 years old before I come buy something that's already there. And the bad thing is it's been open for 10 years, and everybody's been driving on it. The public's, the county's been maintaining it, and so have I. Okay. You know, I don't think there's no way in God's green earth he can do what he did other than y'all let him do it. Now, Kenny stayed out of it because I got a temper. When you live this stuff, and like I'm saying, you should be helping people to find them a way out. When a man's got a quarter of a mile of Babcock frontage, and I told him about this agreement that Mr. Screws had with him about he can park his trucks on it, they can drive. Y'all check into it. Just see if I'm not lying to you. You know, and I never wanted to build a road out of my pocket on somebody else's road property. Do you understand that? That was the stupidest thing in the world. But you fought me for 5, 6, 7 years out there. Like I said, to stop Kenny, you'd have to kill him, because he's coming out of there because there's nothing I was doing that was wrong. You shouldn't be fighting people that was born and raised here. I got the prettiest place in Fellsmere. That's another thing. Oh, Kenny, you're going to have this, you're going to have that, blah, blah, blah. You know, and another thing, that's not a standalone sand mine, but you can't tell these people that. Nobody listens. When I get done, it's a freaking fish farm. Okay, I'm going to grow fish. So don't fight somebody.
Can you let me help you?
I called you to help me. I called everybody that I can call. That's why Kenny's here.
On that easement that you have a copy of right there, that was across the fish.
You want to see it?
Yes, if that's, I would.
Where is the fish farm?
To the south.
South of 99th Street?
Yes, in the city limits of Fellsmere.
But y'all ain't getting this.
Let me ask you this, is the fish farm going to be that new,
No.
okay.
That place is too environmentally sensitive to anything. You see that? That right there is this road right here. Oh, here's, let me get this turned around.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Godfrey, is there any way that you could put that on the overhead so we can all see it?
Is that got an OR book and page? Yeah. Oh, it does, yeah.
This is Babcock right here.
Kenny, if you could orient north-north.
See this right here? See, this is my driveway, and see this other easement? Okay, just this area.
That
right
is,
there.
that's north orientation, I can look at that. All right, thanks.
And if you call down there about that easement, nobody can find it. Thank God I had that piece of paper.
There's, it is, I see an OR book and page on it, so it's recorded somewhere.
So if a man's going to give you a right-of-way to drive through the fish farm, how could he have a problem with you driving down the road? And y'all never told me that I had to go get a right-of-way on a road that y'all are claiming, because I got paperwork from 1999 where the previous fish farm person tried to close that road. Does anybody remember that?
I don't, Kenny. That was all before my time being involved in this.
Well, I got the paperwork if y'all want to see that too.
I believe you.
Hey, Scott, can you read there where it says the page and book number of that easement? It says existing 34, 36 foot.
Let me see if it matches.
I wrote down 1344. Yeah, 1344, page 1569.
And that's what we got a copy of that here. That's the easement that he had.
Okay, so that was recorded then, I assume.
Yes,
It's just got a book
yeah.
and page.
But what it is, you see how it comes further south into the property. So and I'm trying to see where the property line is on that road as it's drawn. Or is that road only 10 foot wide that comes into, that is on 99th Street? You see what I'm talking about, Chris?
Yeah,
It doesn't look.
the existing dirt road, you can see it comes along here, out to Babcock. And the 34-foot easement stretches down into the fish farm property and then out to Babcock.
Okay.
What I was told by everybody was, oh, we didn't know the road was on the adjacent property owner to the south. Okay? Well, he knew it. I paid that man for that right of way there, and then I was fixing to come through there, and then y'all come up with this 3 driveway connection, another way to stop Kenny. Okay? But so then, if you look on the thing, I've tried every way in the world to get out of my whole piece of property. So that's denying me access to it. So I gave you any way you wanted me to go. Just here, pick one. And that's the one you picked. And you okayed it, and it's on the site plan. And I was under protest because I said I don't want to build a road I'd rather have it on my property.
Kenny, that doesn't show it to be on somebody else's property, does it? On this? I mean, I know according to what the property owner to the south is, but Chris, does that
Hey,
not look?
I only went by what y'all told me,
I
that y'all
appreciate
own
that.
that right of way and you had legal whatever to tell me to build it there. Now, and I want to tell you something else. If somebody came on Mr. Godfrey's property tomorrow and started building the road, you wouldn't have got one rock dumped on there before I'd have stopped you. I'm trying to tell you, this guy didn't have a problem with me doing this to this road. What's made him mad is what went on with the grading of the road. Okay. And, you know, and I kept coming down here and telling everybody about what was going on and how this road was a problem, you know. Mm-hmm. But nobody would listen to me. And I can't call nobody because nobody calls Kenny back.
Yes, I do.
Okay? He does. This is the only man in the whole place that will call me.
I call
this
you.
New guy, oh yeah, you call me, but there's nothing you can do until we get here.
That's correct.
You know, but let me tell you, life's too short to fight people to work.
Okay.
Can we agree to that?
Yes, hold on. Let me ask you a question. Chris, does it, according to what you can see, it's still blurry for me, but my eyes or whatever, but just looking at that, where's the ditch? No. Where the existing road is? And
ditch along the north side of 99th Street would be up here.
Okay.
That's on the 40-foot Felsmer Water Control
Looking at these
District
plans,
driveway.
does it have the appearance that the road right-of-way, or the canal right-of-way, is all within the footprint of the road?
No. No.
Can you point to where the current?
Yeah, the existing dirt road. The existing dirt road is right along here.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
The 40 feet of drainage district right-of-way is between about here and here.
Okay. So if you had to quantify a number just based on the scale of that, to me it looks like we're talking about 3 feet, but I've saw a whole lot more 3 feet missing on that road.
We've been out there and looked at the survey markers that were put in by a surveyor working for the fish farm property guy, and it looks like about 10 or 11 feet of the existing road is north of his property line. So if he claims all of that property on the south side of the road, he would leave about 10 or 11 feet, about one lane of roadway.
Which is what it looked like whenever I drove past it.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we have one option is a prescriptive easement, right? Or maintenance easement?
The maintenance easement's kind of a problem because technically that right-of-way is part of the district's right, or at least for the portion within the district right-of-way. I don't know how we take that through maintenance.
We don't need that. We're allowed to use that. So it's the part that we've been historically maintaining, that we're being restricted from maintaining at this point. Correct?
If we've been maintaining something for 7+ years, and I can pull up the statute, then we would have the right to do a maintenance.
We did that on Powerline Road. That was all, I think that was, Bill, did we do that on Powerline Road? For all of it or just a piece of it? From 510 north up to the Sebastian city limits?
I think some of it we bought, and I think some of them we might have gone ahead and done a maintenance map. But I don't know if we'd be able to do a maintenance map here.
Because?
Well, it's not our property. It's right away from the Water Management District.
No, right now, the Water Management District's not giving anybody any fit about what's being done out there. It's the piece to the south of that that has been maintained, to the south of the Water Management right-of-way that has been maintained.
So the existing dirt road is off of the right-of-way.
The existing dirt road that we've been grading, about 10 feet is on the Drainage District property to the north.
Right.
And about 10 feet is on the fish farm property to the south.
Okay.
Is that the way you?
Kenny, we were getting somewhere, I think.
I'm just wondering if
Okay.
you remember the swale, but that's important, right?
Right.
Mr. Gottfried, if you could, no conversations from the audience. It's hard for the clerk to get it down. So we'll give you a chance to speak again if you'd like.
So if I'm understanding this right, over the years that the grader has been grading this road, it has encroached, if you will, onto the southern part of the property. And that would be the fish farm.
Correct.
Okay. And so a maintenance map at that point,
7 years.
I suppose we could go ahead and file for it if we would want to. The fish farm could then object, and then we would have to clear title or try and fix what we have done out there. I don't know, is it a possibility to go back to the north?
That starts to violate the 100-yard rule, the 300 feet of a dwelling whenever you're coming out from a pit. Right, Stan?
Well, I think if you look at the arc that's on that site plan, you can see that the connection that's on this drawing is outside of the 300-foot arc. And, you know, if you shifted, if you went back to that original location, you would still meet the 300 feet.
But taking the 300-foot rule, as Kenny had mentioned, that road between there and Palm Bay is 80% or 70% trucking. I mean, there's just a lot of, that I think we had put into effect when you're putting a sand mine near a residential area that doesn't have normal truck traffic, where this road, everybody just kind of knows that that's I don't want to say it's not designated truck route, but it sure is used a lot by people.
It's got to be a truck route.
I don't think it's designated officially. It should be, but it's not. Because the 300-foot rule, I know what the intent was when we've done them in other areas. We don't want to encroach on a unrelated single-family home.
How would that change our LDR if it's a truck route? I mean, it's still, there's a residence, right?
Correct.
So if we say, okay, all of a sudden this is a truck route, that doesn't change
fix
anything materially?
It doesn't change the LDRs.
Okay.
No. I mean, logically, you'd think it would be a different set of circumstances, but it's not.
What I see here is if I were the owner to the south, I would say, Mr. Godfrey, I'll allow you that 10 feet coming from the pit where they took it away if you would vacate the easement that you have through my property to the south. Because, I mean, basically, he's got a corner of his property that I'm going to say is not buildable. Because
I'd rather y'all check into what the man that sold you the right-of-way out there told you. Not only can he use it the rest of his life, whoever comes behind him, and he parks semis out there.
Who sold us the right-of-way?
Mr. Screws, for $1, 25-foot right-of-way.
Where?
I keep telling them that, but they won't.
Where?
In 68,
not
he sold
when.
you that.
Where's the right-of-way we bought?
Out in the front of my property on Babcock.
To the west?
Yeah, if you ride down Babcock, it's right, that quarter mile from 101st to 99th. Go read what he wrote in there when he gave you that for $1, that right-of-way. He's got that so tied up, and it goes to the landowner after him. So I don't see how you can tell me semis can park out there, harvest fruit, come and go and everything, but a truck's a truck and a dump truck's smaller. I think your best bet is let me build my road on my property, but y'all figure it out, because this guy didn't have a problem until he got mad. Now he thinks if he closes it, that the county, the water district, me, and the city is gonna come in there and buy that right away. And I told him they ain't never gonna buy that right away.
Dylan, what's some ideas?
Well, certainly is one of the discussion points we had was the maintenance map process under 95.3614 to statutes. We could research that issue in terms of the area, not within the district property, but on private property, which has been maintained by the county, and we can examine that. We also could examine the history of the easement and the other rights-of-way history. But part of the problem that I've got as I look at it is just kind of a he said, she said story between the property owner to the south and what Mr. Godfrey's saying, and I'm at least on that issue a little bit apprehensive to jump into a battle between two property owners.
What's the he said, she said conversation?
Well, in terms of what the property owner to the south said, they were going to close the property or they wanted him to buy something.
What does that have to do with the maintenance easement?
Oh, no, I mean, I could research those issues. I was just concerned about diving into any further dispute between two.
I don't want to go there, no.
Okay,
Let,
good.
let me tell you one other thing if I
That was
can.
clear on the record.
Yeah. I mean,
He didn't just give me this right away. I bought this right away. And then I reconstructed the whole front of that fish farm for him. So I've spent major dollars to get out of there. Now, this is the way y'all picked that said was okay. Now, for 10 years, you mean to tell me this road's been there? And you're kind of thinking this guy didn't know the road was on his property? That's malarkey.
We're not saying that, Kenny. In fact, it's exact opposite, as it looks like that's the case as far as the maintenance easement. And I interpreted what you said, that could be something for us to research and get to the bottom of, and if
But
it is.
if you look at the site plan, I had to pour a 24-foot wide apron, 50 foot into 99th Street's y'all's easement, okay? Then, not only a 20-foot wide road, I had to incorporate a swale. I had to have the drainage going the right way. I had to stop the water, make sure it goes east and not come west. Because you know, like I was telling everybody, it's not a big deal that water lays on these streets out there. And then let me tell you what County Road and Bridge told me. They said, Kenny, this is what we're going to do. We're going to come dig your hump out. We're going to go out there. We're going to put catch basins. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And we're going to run that water to Babcock. And I said, well, if it would have been that easy, Chris Marr would have told, hey, Kenny, just do this and run that water to Babcock. You can't do that. You got to hold that water because that point source pollutant stuff, okay? So I haven't done nothing wrong. I've only done what I was told to do.
I get that.
And the neighbor knew quite well what's going on, but he's just trying to get rich. And like I'm trying to tell y'all, it ain't the neighbor. It's the guy he just supposedly leased the farm to that started all this. Because you don't, hey, they knew we were coming here today. If they had a big deal and they wanted to talk this out, because I told them, let's come down there and air this.
Who's the owner to the south?
Pamela Lewis and Steve Lewis.
And they've leased it to an operator?
Some other guy that come in there and told them, oh, we can close this off, we can take this back, the county will buy it. Then the county comes out there and I'm trying to tell Will Scott, a guy named Steve, and Chucky Fortson come out there. And, you know, I'm just standing over here listening to this stuff. And then they say, well, this is what we're going to do, Mr. Godfrey. We're going to dig that hump out and run that water to Babcock. I said, you can't do that. Chris Morris said that water can't go to Babcock. If you look at the site plan that was approved, there's a 20-foot wide road and a swale. That swale just don't hold the water. That swale run that water back to the east, and then there's a pipe right there that goes into a big fish pond, okay? So that water could never get to Babcock, because if it does, you're in trouble.
Commissioners, I don't want to get this confused with anything that's coming up. If this were not a pit, 10-foot wide would be fine for the purposes of what the residents would want on something like this. So this is something that he's needing to be able to get two-way traffic down with his pit. So I get what you're saying there.
And not only that, y'all had to move a telephone pole. That's Mr. Chris Marr. All right, so everybody knows this road was never in the right-of-way. Yeah. He had to fill all the paperwork out to move a telephone pole that was in the way for the very edge of the road and the swale, okay? So, I mean, everybody knew this wasn't in the right-of-way. Now, the next thing I heard somebody say, well, why ain't it all in the right-of-way of the water district? Because you can't, because the stop sign keeps you back 175 feet. There's a rule, and Stan will tell you that. You got to be, my driveway has to be 175 feet from that stop sign. Some rules draw
Mr.
up.
Godfrey, if I may, is there any time frame by which you have to have some solution? I'm just trying to see if we can direct staff to unpack this and repack it in some way.
Well, I want to ask you, being the road's cut in half, who's going to be in trouble when somebody hits one of my trucks?
Well, this is the type of thing I'd like to have staff look at to understand, because there seems to be...
Yeah, it needs to be fixed right away, because there's somebody, let me tell you, if you go look at that, if that ain't a wreck waiting to happen, and I don't want to have nothing to do with it, I'm just blowing the whistles to tell you, if you go look at that, did you seen it? Mm-hmm. Is that the craziest thing you ever seen?
Looks like a one-lane road, what it looked like to me.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and I've seen a bunch of those out in Fellsmere.
Yeah.
Now, I will admit that not with a pit.
Well, I can bet you $1 million if I went to any other pit around here, dug up half their road, Kenny Godfrey would be sitting in jail.
At this time, I don't believe we're going to come to a solution right here. I think we need to probably direct staff to some point to
And I think the preferable,
unpack this and see who has what rights to what, where, and get with Mr. Godfrey, have whatever discussions are necessary, but try to get back in a reasonably quick time with whatever the real alternatives are. But so that's, I'll go to
Mr. Chairman, I don't know whether there's somebody here that would like to speak that is the property owner. If they are, I don't know, but if they want to speak.
Okay, first let me get to Commissioner.
No, Mr. Chairman, that's what I agreed upon. It appears that Stan Bowling looks very eager to wrap this up too and to get to a solution. And Mr. Moore is here, so I know we don't vote on public speaking requests, but I'm sure we have a consensus to get Mr. Godfrey whole.
So I will ask then if there's anybody else in the public who wants to speak on this specific matter. Doesn't appear to be, so I believe we've got a consensus for staff.
Yes.
We're certainly given the problems here, would ask the staff to move as quickly as reasonably.
And if it needs to be on the agenda, we'll be happy to put it on the agenda for
All staff should come
a
back
vote.
to us.
Staff will.
As soon as possible, under the circumstances.
Sure. Say one more thing, just so you know, I heard one of y'all say it. I talked to Rodney Tillman just before I come here, just like he said, he don't have no problem with none of this.
Right.
You know, the only problem he had was that one plan showed piping the whole ditch to Babcock, and he wouldn't allow that. So I just want you to know that. He didn't want the pipe to go all the way to Babcock.
Okay.
That's why I had to put in 80 feet of concrete pipe there for the driveway. So, thank you. Have a nice day.
One thing, just so is there a way we could put is 2 weeks enough, 3 weeks enough to try to, because you're operating as a business, want to make sure this gets resolved?
I'm not coming out there because somebody's going to hit me.
Right.
I'm just telling you, that these people don't think straight no more, so.
We'll do it as quickly as we
Soon as
possibly
we can. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you very much. Now, looks like we've gotten through public items and are up to county attorney matters, permission to file suit for injunction on 4560 32nd Avenue. And it looks like Mr. DeBrawl will be handling this.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill DeBrawl on behalf of the County Attorney's Office. This is a request to file suit against a property owner off of 32nd Avenue. As you can see in the backup in the materials that you have, the owner is Mr. Mason, who's the main owner and the main occupant of the property. It's co-owned with John and Georgianne Gilbert. It's basically using the property as a commercial storage / dump. There are a bunch of broken down vehicles that haven't moved in years. There's other equipment on the property as far as construction equipment and storage equipment. There's a couple of old semi-trailers, tires, boats, construction and utility trailers that are there on the property. Mr. Mason has been approached by community leaders as well as Sheriff's Department has asked him to be out there. Code enforcement has 2 active cases against him that have gone to lien on the property, and you can see that the fines are accumulating. At this point stand to be about $270,000. It just doesn't look like Mr. Mason is going to clean up the property on his own without some intervention from the court. What we would ask is that you give us permission to file suit. We would file suit seeking an injunction from the court ordering Mr. Mason to clean up the property, bring it into compliance, or risk contempt of court charges if he fails to do so. As we said in the item, looking at about $600, $700 in costs between filing fees and title work that would need to be done. So staff's recommendation is to approve filing suit for the injunction to get the property cleaned up.
Thank you. I'll just ask if there are owners here, if he wants to say anything. Okay, Commissioner O'Brien.
Bill, in the backup, there's an aerial photo.
Yes.
And it seems like the parcel adjacent to it, owned by Anna Brown, that seems more of the same. So why is...
It's bleeding over. Anna Brown, I believe, has passed away, and that property is just vacant, and Mr. Mason has taken it upon himself to just kind of bleed his storage of construction equipment and vehicles onto neighboring properties.
Okay.
The other property, I believe, is owned by a corporation, a bank, that was foreclosed on, I think 2 or 3 years ago. And again, it's just kind of bleed over onto
And
the
so the
adjoining
injunction would be
property.
have them clean up all the parcels?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
One, with what Commissioner O'Brien had mentioned, if he just moves everything from his lot to the other, the code enforcement action is against his parcel individually, not Mrs. Brown, correct?
That is correct, but the code violation is storing the commercial vehicles on residentially zoned property. So he would have to remove all of the things or get a large enough building that would be approved to put everything inside. It's the outdoor storage of the commercial stuff that's on the residential zone property that is the code violations.
So if he cleans up his, but he leaves everything on Mrs. Brown's, how do we just tie those to the overflow from his piece to Mrs. Brown, who...
I think...
I just don't want them to go, wait, we cleaned up mine, and they just cleaned it up by moving it all over to
Mrs. Brown's.
An unrelated parcel, Mrs. Brown.
Roland Du Bois, Chief of Code Enforcement. Mr. Mason is the son of deceased Anna Brown. It is an heir to this property and other property estate as identified in some certain other recorded documents that we've researched. So he has an interest in that property as well as the one we cited. So the liens are tied to all real or personal property that Mr. Mason has an interest in, which includes those other properties.
Okay. All right, thanks.
The other thing that we would stress to the court is, especially when you take a look at his equipment that's kind of bleeding over onto the other properties, it says Mason hauling on it. I think the court would agree with us that even if it's parked on a neighboring parcel of property, he's still the owner and responsible for moving it.
Gentlemen,
Mr. Chairman, move staff recommendation.
We have a motion from Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Zork. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Mr. DuBrow.
Thank you.
We move to County Attorney's Annual Employment Agreement.
Move
Mr.
staff
We have
recommendation.
motion from Commissioner Flesher. I'll second it. Any discussion?
Just, I was joking with Dylan yesterday that this might be a close vote, but I think we all feel that Dylan's done an exceptional job, particularly tackling some really big issues. The Ocean Concrete lawsuit, the roof issue, All Aboard Florida, the Vera Electric issue, and Dylan has just shown excellent leadership, and his office, I think, has been turning out work, highly efficient, high-quality work, and very timely. So I'm very pleased to be supporting the motion here.
Yeah, it would be nice for him to finish something.
And, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add to that, that I've had the opportunity to work with 3 different county attorneys, and I've really got to, I say that Dylan, your management of the office and the work product is as good as I've ever seen.
Well, thank you, and I just obviously want to say thank you to the board for, you know, your leadership and working with you has been great, but I also want to say that just my group is amazing.
Yes,
you know, between Bill and Kate and Christina and Nancy and Sandy, they're an amazing team, and that just makes my work a lot easier.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I noticed in reviewing the proposal that there was no time allocated for sleep time. And I bring that up because Councilor Reingold has been available anytime, day or night. We mentioned 24/7 with our emergency responders. Dylan, I just want to thank you for always being available, whether it's dark out there, it's in the evening, or on the weekends. You're always there for your great counseling and advice. So thank you.
With that, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
We'll now move on to another problem from Commissioner Davis's district.
Seems like there's...
Welcome to District 1. No, Commissioners, a couple things that I had the opportunity to sit down with some members of, actually I got invited out, first of all, to the Property Owners Association, and we started out at the community center. And that wasn't big enough, so then we moved it from there over to the auditorium of the old Fellsmere School. And it was pretty much packed, and there was really one resonating issue out there that everybody had on their mind, and that was basically, if you could imagine, it was the roads in Fellsmere in the unincorporated area. And just a little bit of history on this. I knew that this would be a heavy lift to start to move forward whenever former Commissioner of District 1, Fran Adams, didn't have it taken care of by the time I got here. But with that said, it was one of those things that we just had to pretty much bite the bullet, because there was a lot of things out there that it was too much to overcome at one time without doing some extraordinary measures like a MSBU, et cetera. Since that time, there's been several things that have changed, so that I think that it's really about time we start to create a policy to address the issue. And there's 5 of them that I've jotted down real quick. And one of them is the mandatory curbside recycling pickup. And how has that changed? Well, currently, the residents somehow, for the most part, piecemeal and maintain these roads as best they possibly can. And now the county has large vehicles going down on a weekly basis, regardless of the weather, picking up their recyclables, dumping them, and helping us trying to meet the 75% goal. 2, the number of roads, or the number of units out there. Understand the history of Fellsmere Farms. Back in 1925, whenever it got started out there, before that actually, I guess, it was plotted to be 10-acre parcels, not as ranchettes, but literally as farms. So if you look at a plat map, when I have provided one of those, I don't know if y'all received that, but that is literally a copy of the plat. And if you see those little checkered boxes there, those are all those can be all individual parcel IDs. What does that mean? That if they're in the A1 zoning or the A2 zoning, A1 being 1 unit per 5 acres roughly, or an A2 being 1 unit per 10 acres, the building department has deemed that those are each individual and they meet the zoning requirements for a single residence. The reason why I say that is because whenever Sun Ag, Fellsmere Joint Venture, was annexed into the city of Fellsmere, they took a large portion of these out of play for the county to have to worry about, because they are currently now inside the city limits of Fellsmere, and they have their own mechanism of dealing with that in the future. And it clearly won't be 1 unit per 5 acres or 1 unit per 10 acres. So that took better than, I'm going to say, just looking at it, that took better than, I'm going to say 2/3 of the problem away just by that annexation happening whenever that 18,000 acres was annexed. Number 2 is we have an agreement, or excuse me, number 3, we have an agreement with the Water Control District. And the Water Control District knew that our agreement, just like Public Works in my opinion, and if they don't, I certainly believe that the agreement is not working and it's not equitable. They had an answer to it, they being the Water Control District. They asked the state legislature to create an improvement district. The difference between a water management district or water control district and an improvement district is they can actually do more things than just convey water. The legislature passed that improvement district. At the same time, or the year before that, the St. John's Water Control District, not to be confused with the St. John's Water Management District, the St. John's Water Control District, which is out south of State Road 60, west of 95, as well as the Sebastian Water Management District, Water Control District, did in fact work through the legislature and became improvement districts so that they can do extra things other than just convey water, and the governors at the time had signed that. Unfortunately, whenever Fellsmere Water Control District brought theirs forward and got it through the halls of the legislature to become an improvement district, the governor vetoed that. So therefore, they're not able to take care of this on their own the way they'd like to. And the significance of that is they have a taxing authority and entity that could literally charge those that are in that drainage basin for the type of improvements. So with that said, with the old agreement that we use with the Water Control District, it allows for maintenance of many roads out there on the east side of Willow, south of 512, not the ones on the west side. And what's happened since the agreement and since 2004 is Mr. Kahn, who had probably 1,000 acres in there, I guess. I don't know how many lots, but basically they were all south of 512. and they were all on the west side of 130th Avenue, also known as Willow. During the land boom, he sold those off into those 10-acre parcels to make it legal, and it was legal. And since then, construction during the boom took place, where you had the ranchettes with the 5,000 square foot houses. It was really a high end, if you will, development. And even those that might have gone through foreclosure or didn't get built on, now there's that construction's coming back in a resurgence. So the equitable side of it is in fact, from the research that has been done by some of the residents out there, the roads that aren't being maintained are actually paying anywhere from 30 to 50% more in ad valorem taxes than the ones on the east side that are being maintained by the county. So there's an equitable issue there. And in addition to that, as we come out of the Great Recession, quite frankly, we're going to see more of this, and this isn't going to go away. And it's something that I'd like to have a policy created that at least whenever somebody comes in and asks why their road's not being graded, I have something quantified, something qualified that I can say, you haven't met this requirement. Throwing things out, for example. And to give you a real example that I have lived through. On 107th in the area of Pine Lake Estates, of Vera Lake Estates, behind the McDonald's, during the boom, several of those lots were bought by either individuals or home builders. That road did not have enough traffic on it at the time for that road to be on the county's grading route. As homes went in there, eventually it just got to the point where Public Works Department said, okay, we'll go ahead and we'll start to maintain that road. To this day, you might find it familiar that it's actually the one that we just put millings down because it's the main entrance and exit out of that portion of Pine Lake Estates. I don't know what the policy was that caused that that predicated the maintenance, but I'd like for something to come forward to say, listen, if it's half built out or if it has X number of trips on it, because there's another problem area that needs to be addressed, that it's not that the threshold of a certain number of lots built out isn't going to work, and that's specifically in the northwestern portion of unincorporated Indian River County outside of Fellsmere. And that northwestern portion is on the west side of Park Lateral, and there's specifically 1 or 2 feeder roads that come back into the property that the plats have sold off, similar to what Mr. Kahn has done. So you've got like 109th and 107th that is feeding areas that are only accessed by 109th and 107th. So I don't have the answer here today, but there's several things that are coming into play aside from the 5 that I just named. We have many roads in Vera Lake Estates that we've just done a large milling, and I'm going to see a project, and I'm hoping we'll in the future see the demand as those move forward, the demand for the greater route, obviously, on the milled roads to Wayne. I'm not asking for a grader and an operator. Quite frankly, neither are the residents out here right now. Will it be that way one day? Perhaps. Will we ever make it to where everybody that's on a dirt road out in Fellsmere happy? We can't even do that in Vera Lake Estates. It's not that. But there's several issues that have changed, that the county's policy has implemented, and I also think this too. I do believe that of the 3, and I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure, the 3 individuals that are running for County Commission District 1, I'm pretty sure they're all in favor of mandatory curbside pickup. So that's going to be another dynamic that's going to change in the future, in my opinion. As y'all know, that I'm not in favor of that, but I think that in time that will simply change, and all that's going to do is exacerbate the situation out there. Something's got to be done. All I'm asking for right now is for us to give some direction to the county administrator and to start coming up with something to where it'll be a light at the end of the tunnel of starting to maintain a grid out there for the future, because this isn't going to go away, and sticking our head in the sand is not the answer.
So if I understand it, you're basically just looking for a long-term plan which would include various options for how to go about something, so that we...
And it'd be something pretty simple. Is, they're not asking for it to be... To talk to several of them, and because of the density out there, it's not like it would be a Vera Lake Estates route where you have several homes packed in there on the dirt road. They're just after something for some relief.
Well, for right now, we just wanted to get some idea so we can understand what the county policy is today, and understanding that change is going to take place
with the intent of moving in that direction of.
Okay,
that's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Question?
Question
Go, Senator.
to you, Commissioner Davis. To move forward to get to a maintained roadway, at some point we have to work out easements maybe with the water people. It should just be part of the steps to go through, and then how do we initiate that on behalf of those residents?
And I don't want to go there, because I think that if we and the fact of the matter is if you look at, and I'll tell you why. You can look at the 99th that Kenny Godfrey was just in here. To the residents out there, the one-lane road is perfect. That's fine and maintained. As far as having something that you can land a 747 down and open it up and needing to take everybody's right-of-way, moving the telephone poles and all that kind of stuff, you can come up with more reasons not to do this. But here's the problem with that, is the very roads on the east side of Willow are exactly those
The same
small.
on the west.
Yeah, they're exactly those small lanes. In fact, this area that I'm talking about, that I think there's more room to get a grader down there and turn it around than many of them that are being maintained on the east side of Willow, south of 512. So we can overanalyze this all day long. We've got cooperation out of the Water Control District from Rodney Tillman out there. That'll continue to happen. The agreement said they provide the material and we do something. And to simply put, I cannot explain it to the people that live on the west side of Willow why.
The ones on the
On the
east.
east. And y'all know my policy. If I can't explain it, I'm going to change it.
Right. And I also went through a similar property tax analysis that the folks on the west side that aren't being maintained are really paying a larger share than the folks are on the east side, which is just an inequity that needs to be reconciled.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What complicates matters is, and I agree, Commissioner Davis, in speaking with Rodney, he said that the district must maintain access for maintenance, but would be happy to give us the opportunity to work on the roadway, since he needs that access and the legislature has not been able to fund any reparations or supply for the maintenance. He would allow us to maintain it, but he needs to also maintain, short of the board voting, maintain the safe operation and the day-to-day maintenance or usage of those right-of-ways. So it's very complicated.
And in addition to that, keep in mind that they tried to address this themselves as a
Yes.
drainage district by going to an improvement district, and they made it through the halls of the legislature. It just got vetoed. And so it's not like they're just, trying to hand something off to us. They tried to help themselves.
But in that case of trying to help themselves, a possible thing that ought to be looked at along the way is an MSBU.
Well,
I'm not saying that's the solution, but I mean, that's in the realm of
It's an
things that
option.
are possible.
Yep.
Those are the type of things that ought to be looked at.
Yep.
I don't believe at this point it's time to close off options. Commissioner, Mr. Reingold.
Thank you very much. One issue I would like to raise, because as we're looking at this long-range plan, if that's the direction of the board, I certainly want the residents to know that in our waste management contract, it specifically states that a franchisee must use a substandard road as determined by the county to obtain access to a customer. Franchisees shall use lightweight or small vehicles and equipment when providing service on such roads. So if the folks out there know that they're bringing in heavy trucks in violation of the contract, we need to know that so that we can, deal with waste management and direct waste management to address that issue properly. I just didn't want that issue to go undealt with in the interim period.
No, but that's also, though, why I bring up the mandatory curbside in the future. They're not going to do that in a light truck.
No.
And I see that coming. I mean, I'm as much as I'm philosophically opposed to it just because of the structure of my neighborhood and where I live. But that's coming. I think there's not a commissioner up here that can honestly look themselves in the eye and say, we will never have curbside pickup for garbage. And they're not going to do that manually. And so sometime we're going to have to bite the bullet sometime on this and move a process forward to address the issue of the roads out there.
One of the things that we have an obligation with waste management is to provide them with complaints that we've received from citizens. So clearly, if we're getting complaints from citizens in these areas, we need to hear from them, and then we'll make sure waste management's aware so that they're abiding by that, so they are not tearing up the roads in their condition.
Thank you. I see that Chris and Jason got up. You gentlemen care to say anything at this point?
Chris Mora, Public Works. No, I was just available to answer any questions as far as the way things operate there currently. I mean, we basically have a balanced grader route system in the county. We have 6 total grader routes, 6 heavy equipment operators, 3 North County, 3 South County. Now, in this area, there's basically one grader and operator that work in the Fellsmere area, and an adjacent one in the Vero Lake Estates VLE grader. They're close enough that they can kind of hand jobs off to each other, but if we were to tell you where we stand, we could stand to pick up 1 or 2 additional routes in the Fellsmere Water Control District rights of way, but if we do something more substantial than that, we would have to add another grader route.
Yeah, and Commissioners, there's places out there where you can drive 2.5 to 3 miles before you get to the first house. I'm not after that. It's basically, but whenever somebody whenever that house does come to me and say, I'd like to have my road graded, I said, well, here's the county policy. The county policy says you got to be X number built out or per mile or something. And I don't have the answer for it, but.
As I understand, what you want to do is get us some sort of clear understanding of the policy, and if there is any clear path forward in the future.
Sure, yes.
So, and with that, it appears that there are people in the audience who may want to speak on this, so I'll just ask if there is anybody from the public who wants to speak on this.
Jason might.
Jason, I'll ask the public again after you go, Jason.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Jason Brown, County Budget Director. We do have some concerns about liability out there. One thing we'd like to see changed in that agreement we have with the Water Control District is an indemnity and a hold harmless, because some of these roadways are very limited right-of-way. We've already had lawsuits where we've been named as parties to the lawsuit. A school bus hit someone out there years ago. We were added. They wanted $100,000 from us because essentially we got fingered for maintaining the roadway. So we're taking on liability. And if we could
Jason,
just,
have we asked that question of the Drainage District to do that already?
we have not reached out to them for that at this point. But just
can I, on that issue, how would that stand up as far as, I mean, if we were held harmless and they said, sure, no problem, if you want to, here it is?
Yeah, I mean, we'd be thrilled if in the agreement incorporated a provision that stated, and we hold harmless and indemnify the county for any and all of its activities and such. The next time, like Jason mentions, we get a lawsuit, that's the first card we're going to play, and we're just going to point back to the district to essentially stand in our shoes in the lawsuit.
And they have sovereign immunity also?
Well, we could do it to the extent permitted, under law or whatever agreements, but there are governmental agencies who essentially exchange those types of indemnification provisions.
But I really think we're getting off track here. This is the type of thing which would be dealt in the plan as we go forward and addressed, which the staff's aware of, so it'd be one of the first things we talk about, but
the issue is just silent in our current agreement.
That's fine. Go on, Jason.
Okay, so this, what you have here is a picture of 99th Street, an area a little bit east of where Mr. Godfrey was talking about. But you can see this line on the left side is pulled along the corner markers of that property. So that's the fish farm where they've put this berm up. So there's a very limited right-of-way there for the county to maintain, barely wide enough to get the grader down. So you run into drainage problems. We may have some issues because we haven't gotten the marl material that the agreement says the drainage district is to provide. But what you have is, if you go to the next slide, Scott, is the water doesn't have anywhere to go, so you end up with washouts, and that can create a problem. Obviously, we're not supposed to be draining into the canals like that, and you create a safety issue.
Jason, do we maintain that one?
Yes, this is 99th Street where we maintain. So if you go to the next one, that's just a close-up. And then next is just an example of one of the streets. I think it's 85th Street, it may have been 87th Street, but we were out there just taking a look at it. We found a survey marker that indicated where the corner was on the property, and where that red line is looks to be about the limit of the right-of-way. So,
and we
where the
maintain
road,
that one too?
We do not maintain this one currently.
This is on the west side then?
85th west of Willow.
Right.
So we've got a concern there. We're going to be where the roadway is. That doesn't look, I'm not the public works expert by any means, but that doesn't look wide enough to maintain any kind of road if we stay on the left side of that red line. So we may need some right-of-way or easements.
Guys, don't overanalyze it. I don't even want to go that direction. We maintain them that way on the east side all day long. So I understand staff trying to find more ways to stop it than to move it forward, but that's not the answer.
We can only tell you legally we're on private property.
And as we add greater routes, those are $165,000 a year. and somebody has to pay those costs. And we had a study done by Carter and Associates in 2004 on unmaintained roadways that recommended MSBUs or MSTUs for this scenario, so.
But
just
again,
wanted
I
to
mean,
put that there.
we're now getting down to sort of specifics. Again, as I understood the request from Commissioner Davis and Commissioner Flesher is that we want to get some idea of a general plan, and in that, it would include what these type of problems are, and it looks like they're going to be many different problems. And it may be that we end up, and I'm not suggesting this today, it may be we end up with something like, say, a millings program, where it's shared by the block or it's shared by whatever, but we have a process that we can go forward with. Or it may be an MSBU, or it may be something else. But it's clear that we really don't know today what the scale and scope of this is, any idea of what the real costs of it are going to be, or any idea of what a reasonable starting point or path forward would be. And I think that's my understanding is that's what we want to get, is some, basically build the general ballpark so we have an idea of what reasonable discussions that we can have going forward.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Commissioner Solari. That's what we can do is come up with a general plan for the area, similar to what we've done in VLE, similar to what we've done in Oslo Park and other areas where we've made road improvements. I think where staff is kind of stuck in this issue is that these roads are not ours. And that's different from anywhere that we've worked before. So that's kind of a big hump that we've got to get over.
And that may be it in the end, but I don't know. But again,
I'd like to clarify something. Do we own Ranch Road, 82nd Avenue, that we graded forever?
82nd Avenue,
Yeah.
a small portion of it we do. Most of it is drainage district property, you're correct.
Which is pretty much similar to this. Most of this is going to be.
well, not
drainage
really
district
that similar, because 82nd is recognized as a main road throughout. It was recognized as a citrus highway for some decades
But
and stuff like
it was
that.
said we never do this.
well-
And when he inferred property we don't own.
We're not on private property, though. That's another whole issue that you've got to be careful with.
But again, this is something that we haven't really had a full board discussion of. I'd rather get a better understanding of it, allow staff to get a better understanding of it, so at least we understand better what the scale and scope of things are. Again, it may be that the best thing is, at the end of the day, an MSBU. It may be that there's nothing that we can really do practically, given all the alternatives, but that's not something I'm certainly not prepared to do now. So,
Agreed.
One last, for me, the roads that we are grading on the east side of Willow, right? If we're grading those, what's unique about those that's not unique about the other side? Is it that we have permission from the water management on those sides, or are those roads not in the district?
No, there's basically no difference between the ones on the east side versus the ones on the west side. If you look at them, number of lots that are developed, or percentage of lots that are developed, amount of traffic, they're about equal. It's just that those on the east side were accepted some time ago for whatever reason for grading, and we started grading them, and we've kept on grading them. It's just that if we expand many more and start picking up some on the west side of Willow, on the west side of Park Lateral, then we expand the routes, and eventually we're going to get to the point where we've got to add another grader or do something more substantive area-wide.
Right. Would it make, just a question to you, if we look at a policy countywide, it has to deal with a lot of factors. If we said just this area adjoining the Fellsmere city limits off of Willow to make it more focused, it would, because what's there with those ranchettes is really kind of unique to the rest of Oslo Park's different.
Sure.
Trying to think, Stevens Park, that's different. All the other ones that have dirt roads, since this is kind of unique, if change the request to be more geographic, because the solutions that will work there won't work in the other ones. The ones that work in the other ones won't work.
No, and I think it would really behoove the commissioners to get with the residents and go out there and look at one of the roads that we maintain that's on the east side of Willow, and then go look at one of them that they're asking to be maintained that's on the west side of Willow. And what you'll find is the newer developments out there, the newer homes that are on the west side, there's more room. I mean, you don't have that 109th.
Right.
It's you just don't have that same problem as bad. And then you go on the north side of 512 specifically, where circle something to Don Studley's development that he did out there. You know, those roads are really in good shape. but yet the county never went and maintained them from there. And so it was an opportunity at the time. Those should have, in my opinion, been added to the grader route at that time. But again, it goes back, it was before recycling. It was before the number of houses that were out there. It was before they started building and increasing the tax base. It was before the economy turned back around, and the timing just wasn't right for any of those. And that's the material change here in front of us today.
Okay, well, once again, ask if there's anybody from the public who'd like to speak on this. Morning, name and address for the record, please.
Mike Grimm. I'm on the 85th Street that you had up there,
Your address,
13270 85th Street, pardon me?
Your address, please.
13270 85th Street, Fellsmere. Appreciate the discussion here this morning, and I ask that wherever we go forward with this, that you at least get us involved in this and let us know what we need to do on our end to either expedite or continue the discussion. We feel that the services that we're paying for are the same that they're paying for on the east side. Our values are higher on the west side of especially Willow, and we don't seem to be able to get the services that we felt that we were going to be provided with when we built our properties out there. So that's the only thing I would ask, is to make sure that whoever is doing it with Public Works or the commission, that they get us involved. We do have a committee formed for this purpose, and we're not going away.
And they're not appointed by the county commission. They're just their own little group from the North County Property Owners Association.
That's all I'm asking. Thank you
very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Ernie Wilson, 13485 87th Street in Fellsmere. You only have 3 roads left on Willow that's not graded. And to me, why not just vote on it today, just to go ahead and grade our 3 roads, and that way you'll have all Willow graded.
Is that all?
Yeah.
3 on the west.
3 on the west? I'm not scared.
No, but again, the idea is we don't know what this leads to after that. I mean, it doesn't address what you just said you wanted to do, Commissioner Davis. But trying to figure out.
Got Ernie's road graded.
Our roads are wider on
the west
side than they are on the east side.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And why is that? Can somebody share that with me? Anybody know? Okay. Okay.
I feel
Anybody?
I would feel more, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I would feel more comfortable in doing that if we knew exactly whose right-of-way was where. And even though we've had staff go out there and delineate it, there are some complications of just painting it with a wide brush and saying, let's just grade all the roads.
And certainly if we're going to do anything like that, we would want to have the conversation with the Water Management District about the indemnity
Yes.
and things like that, all those
Want
things.
him
which-
here.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so I just don't
Let
want
me just ask one more time if there's anybody else from the public who wants to speak on this. Come on up, sir.
My name is David Melnick. I'm on 13705 81st Street. We're relatively new to the area. Our roads are graded by a neighbor down the street. He gets out and drags a box beam when he needs to. 2 issues I'd like to address. The first is the recycling pickup. From a liability standpoint, you said light vehicle. I can attest to damages in our street, culverts being replaced due to a light vehicle. So the work that the county is doing, trying to meet a 75% goal,
mandate,
is adding liabilities to the homeowners. Fortunately, the people who had this damage done were able to work it out with the waste company to replace the pipe, but there was effort there. The second thing is, we do have, our population is getting a little older in the area, and there is a liability. We are paying for EMS services out there. I don't know of any on our street or in our area, but I have heard stories where after a rain, the EMS has not been able to access the home that made the call. So those are the 2 things you need to take into consideration. There are liabilities, I understand that. There are liabilities associated with grading the roads, but there are hidden liabilities without touching the roads. The people are paying for something they don't feel they're getting. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Commissioner Davis?
all right.
Can I throw in one thing while you're thinking
Yes.
that might, if we have staff go back, let's say in 30 days, bring back options, pros and cons, schedule a workshop that includes the water management folks, includes the related parties, here's what we found out, put everybody into a room, scheduled meeting that we could take an action at, and then get it moving sooner, quicker than going the back and forth
Yeah.
to.
In fact, what I'd like to do, with that said, I'd like to, let's go ahead and schedule something. I'd like to have if it's all with this board, I'd like for all of us to go out there and physically look at one group, advertise it as a meeting, and see if we can have it out there at City Hall, perhaps, or something like that, and to go look at it somehow.
And even do the workshop
Do it out there,
afterwards.
yeah. And
look on your own, but then meet at
exactly.
City Hall at a certain time.
And that way, we're out there where the residents a little bit more conducive, but there's clearly, we can have analysis or paralysis by analysis in this whole thing, guys.
Right.
And there, whenever you look at it, I can tell you, yes, there's a spot there where we've been maintaining a road, and it's on private property. If it is, and if that's such a big issue, well, dadgummit, let's go ahead and file the maintenance part of it and move forward. This is not going to go away. It's going to continue to get worse, and it's foolish for us, in my opinion, to kick this thing, that can down the road on this thing. So I'll go ahead and I'll try to make a motion on it that I want. Do we have a motion?
We already have a motion.
We already got one.
Motion and a second.
What specifically was the motion?
Well, basically, I'll try to rephrase it as well as
That
I
came
can.
from the
based on-
maker?
Yeah.
The motion, your motion, Commissioner Davis, was roughly to direct staff, based on the contents of the conversation at the board today, to come up with a general plan which would sort of set or indicate county policy for the roads in this district and other similar districts in the county, and perhaps come up with some suggestions on if we're going to be accepting more maintenance of these roads over time, some suggestions about the best way to facilitate that maintenance, which may include things like enhanced agreements with the Fellsmere Water Control District, may include things like an MSBU, may include allowing for the type of agreements that we have with the millings project, that sort of thing. But after the staff has a little better idea of the scale and scope of the problem and some idea of the scale and scope of the cost, to be able to not even necessarily make recommendations, but some suggestions on a path forward, so that we can have a clearer understanding of what the county policy is and what the cost of the taxpayers might be.
The only thing that I'd like to see is something quantifiable that would go ahead and trigger a road to be graded, as far as a number.
I mean, if that's
I think that's important, because I think that's really what the residents are after also, is not just some grand scheme, but basically, and I think it's, for any of us to be able to say, okay, your road's not being graded because X, Y, and Z, or one more or two more or something like that. Once you reach this threshold, then the county steps up and does X, Y, and Z.
But
I'd like that added to the motion.
To the second?
Mr. Chairman, yes. Commissioner Davis, we just don't have all of the information necessary to go forward today.
I agree.
Again, I remind you that I would be happy to if we had that information, if we can get that assertion from staff. But in addition, fully supporting the motion, and my second is amended, I would like to add that perhaps, we have had meetings in Sebastian on issues. I like the idea of us setting a meeting out there, because I saw the concern from council of us all going out there. We would have to do it independently, but if it was a meeting, I think it can be accommodating us to go out there in one van, or just drive out there and then continue the meeting in Fellsmere if they would be happy to host us. And then we can address the issue that day, with many of the citizens not having to travel down here to Vero Beach to the meeting, and we would be very close to the challenge, and we would have our staff, which would also be able to supply all of the information necessary, and we can also invite Mr. Tillman.
Wonderful.
Would you be happy to include that?
Yes, that's fine. Mr. Tyson has something, I think, too, he'd like to say.
Well, Joel's coming up, Mr. Chairman. As part of one of the solutions, could we ask County Attorney's Office to reach out to our lobbyists to approach the governor and explain the situation, and just see if the governor can change his mind to approve the improvement district if it,
That'd be one of those type of
Right,
things
okay,
that would
just
be part of the process.
Put a little
I'd say
cash
yes.
into the.
Mr. Tyson, name and address for the record.
Joel Tyson, 22 North Mulberry Street, Fellsmere. I'm not here as a mayor, I'm here as the president of the Property Owners Association for Fellsmere area. We're the ones that started all this. It was suggested that one of our meetings that we would invite Commissioner Davis and Chris Morrow and Rodney Tillman to come out to a meeting. That's when we packed the house and we had to move over to the auditorium. I think one of the things that you need to see is not like the roads are today, but if we get the rain in here that we're going to have this afternoon that we're talking about, if you come out tomorrow or the next day and see what kind of shape those roads get in after it rains, that'd be the ideal time for you to see it. It's a mess. I went on 85th the other day. I had some friends in from Ohio, and I wanted to show them Mike's new home out there. There's some really nice homes. They're like $400,000 homes that they're building out there, and I know what the taxes would be with that. There was a washout just off of Willow Street. I thought the water was going to come in my car. It was huge. You've heard about washouts that would swallow a Volkswagen. Well, this was one of them. And that happens every time it rains. So I would suggest if you're going to come out, that would be the time to do it, is to come out after a rain. Don't come out there when the roads are dry and all that stuff. So see it like it really is that those people have to live with out there. And there are a lot of the property owners out there are paying people that have access to graders, or they're using box blades out there just to get the bumps out of the road so they can drive on it. So it's a bad situation, and it needs to be addressed. We're not doing this as a city function. We're doing it because these are neighbors of ours and we're concerned about them. So I would urge you to move out on this thing. Don't just talk it to death.
Thank you.
We need to keep it going, and we'll get the people there. That won't be a problem. We put the word out. We have a way of getting online and so forth and getting the people that are
There's better
interested
than 100
in it.
people there that night.
Yes, they just came from everywhere.
Yep.
It made me feel good because we have, a lot of you come out there. We have all the constitutionals, people come out and talk, and we have 10 or 15 people maybe at the most. So we have good meetings, trying to keep the people informed on what's going on so they don't have to come down here to these meetings. So come on out, we'll have a good crowd for you, and give us something positive that we think we can rely on, that'll get things done. This is an election year, so this is probably the best time in the world to get something done instead of just promises. So, okay, that's all I've got to say. Thank you for listening to us. It's been an ordeal this morning, but
This isn't an ordeal, this is normal.
I know, you guys do this every week, and I applaud you for doing it. So anyhow, thank you a lot.
Thank you.
And what I'll do is I'll get with the committee, but I think there is really 3 areas of I'm going to say of concern that stick out at me. One of them is the area west of Willow, south of 512. One is west of Park Lateral, north of 512, and the other is that 109th and 107th area. I'm going to call it a Plattville, up in there where the Plats have sold off several of those lots. Unless I'm leaving something off, those are really just 3 hot areas that I seem to get a lot of feedback on. And those probably, if the opportunity for the commissioners to go and meet there individually with the committee, and just see those 3 areas, go from 1 to 1 to 1, and then take them to a road that's maintained by the county, that doesn't have the right of way, that somehow miraculously a grader fits, that nobody's ever been sued by, that all the other things that keep getting added on to, but yet it gets maintained. I think that'd be appropriate for the commissioners to witness also.
And Joel, if you've noticed how much Wesley's been talking, you know it's an election year.
Well, I know. One of the things that I think these people will be happy with, I understand, and I don't know this because I don't live out there, I live in town, but that they're grading like 3 times a month on the parts that is being graded. These people would be happy with once a month.
That's exactly it. And the traffic volume doesn't need 3 times a month.
Exactly right.
It's 1 unit per 10 acres, 1 unit for the most part for 5 acres. It's not as intense or severe as in my opinion, as it's being made out.
Yeah, just, Chris, if you could schedule them just once a month, come out there, people will be tickled to death with it.
Okay, we've got the direction, we've got the motions. I think we're getting off track. I think
Okay.
right now, it'd be good to vote on the motion. We have the motion from Commissioner Davis, seconded and amended by Commissioner Flesher. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Commissioner Zord.
Chairman, I'd like to see about proposing a motion to have the community workshop meeting with the commissioners in Fellsmere at a time on or before June 30th.
Okay.
I think that gives enough time to get questions and answers, and we would just have to figure out a date that works with availability in Fellsmere, availability of the folks here. Would it be a day meeting or a night meeting?
Day's fine. I don't think that's the issue that pretty much draws people, but.
Okay.
We can just do this on consensus, everybody?
Yeah,
That's
Commissioner
fine,
Bryan?
yeah,
like that. I
and that
like
was
the
my
time.
intent.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you for
we're
that.
fine on that.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
We'll leave that to staff to organize as part of the initial motion.
Okay.
Moving
Now,
on,
do you want us, we won't come back with a report until after that meeting, or do you want us?
I think
We
it's
want it
prob-
before.
Okay,
I don't
that's what
know.
I want to clear, okay.
well, will staff have time to get it done well before that? I don't know.
I think so. We've pretty much been over this already. I mean,
Okay.
even the questions and that kind of stuff,
We'll bring a time frame back to the next.
All right, we'll move on to other commissioner matters. Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you is a proposal, little history on this. Back in 2005, the Source purchased the building they're in, and from what I can ascertain from staff, sometime in 2005, an application was made by the Source for water and sewer. Both water and sewer were hooked up. The water impact fee was paid, and water bills have been invoiced and paid since 2005. But for some reason, the sewer impact fee was never collected, and there was never any charge for the sewer service since 2005. We've tried to go back and research kind of how this happened, and unfortunately, a lot of the principals that were in the utility department back then are no longer with us, so it's been hard to determine what might have really happened. However, that was a very busy time. The building and utility departments were busy with growth and post-hurricane recovery actions, and it could have been it just fell through the cracks and it was never picked up. A recent request for service from the Source, though, uncovered the fact that they do have sewer hookup, but have never been charged or paid the impact fees. Utility staff presented a bill to them for the impact fee and some deposits and the sewer line in the right-of-way. Total charge is about $16,227 and change. Kind of a big impact for a nonprofit to absorb in a big chunk like that. And in talking to staff, we have to pay the impact fee. Our ordinances require that. We can't waive that. But given the fact, I think the county shares some blame here by letting it fall through the crack. On the other side, the Source has been receiving free sewer treatment for years, so I think it's fair that they shoulder a little bit of the lift here. So what I'm proposing, and hopefully the board will consider, that we kind of just split this on a 50-50 matter. One is I'm recommending that we waive the deposit charges. They've been paying their water bill for 10 years, and I think they're good to keep paying in the future. The county will pay for 1/2 of the impact fee and the right-of-way charges from the general fund, and that would be $7,976.13. And then the Source would have to pay the other half of that, and we do allow either a 5 or 10-year financing option at the county's rate at 5% interest. And then Utilities has updated the Source's account. They will be currently being billed for sewer service, and so we've covered that, and now we're just trying to deal with the impact fee. So that would be my motion, that the board consider going 50-50 on the impact fee and
I'll second
charges.
it, and I'll note that the Source does actually fill a quasi-judicial function by being a cold weather shelter.
That's correct.
And they have been good customers for 10 years. I think that, all in all, this is a very reasonable thing. And the county administrator, Joe, this comes out of the general fund then?
Yes.
Okay, do you have any specific problems with this?
No, if you want to do
Any
this.
commissioners have any questions?
I have one as a consideration of amending the motion. recently working with another commercial property owner in another area. It wasn't on an unpaid portion of a connection, but they were looking at going from septic to sewer, but they had 5 ERUs for water. The analysis actually showed that their demand for ERUs for water, that they were, they paid for 5, but when looking at their consumption use the last 5 years, they're only really using about 2. So their sewer connection was based on a lower ERU number. That may not be the case here, but if agreeing on the policy on the half share and those things, but have the utilities department run it through the same scenario as we just did last month for another facility, just to see if that's the appropriate. We know that's the sort of the book number based on the water ERUs of what they have, but in this other case, it actually came out to be they didn't need 5 sewer ERUs, they only needed 2 after they looked at the actual consumption history.
We can analyze that.
And then if it ends up being
when
less,
we come back with the agreement.
fine, and if not,
On the same basis.
Same basis, yes.
But with a note that there is a limitation, we have had to do that with a few of the applications and new uses, specifically where there was a high water use, and then later on, the new owner intends to have a lower water use. It has to be based upon, and Vinnie can correct me if I'm wrong, but it has to be based upon the customary use, and it must be for a 2-year period of time, and
they've
then
got
it can
the
go
10-year
back.
period, so.
But I just did not want anybody to be misled to feel that we can just take a look at it, all right, you're using a lot less, so you're gonna pay a lot less, and it's all there is to it, and we're gonna set the fee.
we looked at factors, the utilization of the facility, was it always occupied, and some of those parameters to, you wouldn't want to look at the consumption use if it was half empty, because that would give you artificial low
But staff
numbers.
has done a fine job.
This ERU use is already set policy, county policy, so
Correct.
it's just actually applying the present policy and
Policy to it,
asking staff to
Right.
look into that, so that's all that is.
Yeah, and I'll just amend the motion then that we pay the general fund 1/2 of whatever the impact fee that staff comes up with and the right-of-way charges.
And the second is so amended.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Robin Diaz is here, but I think she's appreciative of this.
happy, folks, I'm sorry.
No, I do need to say something. Robin Diaz with the Source, I just want to thank you so much. This means a lot to us because, you know, we're here to help people. And that large of an amount would have been a definite problem. So I just want to thank you all.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Commissioner O'Brien.
You're welcome.
And thank you for the services you provide our community. We will move on to special districts and boards, solid.
Approval of the minutes of April 19, 2016.
We've got a motion to approve from Commissioner O'Brien, a second from Commissioner Flesher. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Moving on to number 2, amendment number 7 to Republic Services.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Flesher, seconded by Commissioner Zork. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. This meeting is adjourned.